The main guy in the story has always worked for the Empire. Every day he did what he was told, all for one reason, to make it back home someday. He got stabbed in the back and thrown aside. Because of a strange artifact, he got a second shot at life. This time he showed up as a baby in a noble family. He saw this as his chance to get back at them. With everything he'd learned and the strange new powers he picked up as a necromancer, he stood out as the guy in his family. Ready to see what else was out there, he packed up and headed out to start his own adventure. It all starts on Earth in 2045. The world is a mess, with soldiers clashing against monsters in the middle of a huge battle. A soldier gets hurt during a fight when a monster strikes him straight in the chest. The wound looks really bad, serious enough that it's clear he might not make it. A massive monster towers above the last group of soldiers. Its shadow stretches over them, making everyone freeze in place. The guys can't help but stare, hearts beating faster as they realize just how big this thing is. Nobody moves, waiting to see what the monster will do next. The soldier lies on the ground, beaten and out of options. He stares up, thinking this might really be it for him. Before he can do anything else, the monster goes after him. Han showed up just in time, stepping in to help the warrior. He jumped right into the fight, swinging his sword with everything he had. The huge monster goes all out, sending a bunch of attacks at Han at the same time. Han moves fast, dodging every swipe and strike the monster throws at him. He doesn't let up, staying sharp and focused as he slips past each attack, his eyes locked on the creature. Even though the monster keeps coming, Han manages to keep himself one step ahead, never letting it catch him. He dodges just in time, barely missing a punch that came out of nowhere. He raises his weapon and shoots, managing to blast off one of the monster's tentacles. Han spots the soldier he just helped and quickly gets his attention. It turns out Han isn't just any fighter, he's actually the supreme commander leading Earth's last defense team. Even though the situation is rough, he doesn't let up. He tells the soldier to get back on his feet and keep going, showing that he's not only in charge but also right there in the middle of the action, pushing everyone to keep fighting. The soldier stands up, nodding that he got the command. He grabs his rifle and heads back into the fight. Monsters just kept coming, wave after wave, with no end in sight. It was clear from the battlefield that humans had been fighting these creatures for years, locked in a war that never seemed to let up. Han let the group know there weren't many monsters left ahead of them. He's finally standing face to face with his target. Without hesitating, he takes off, charging straight ahead. He reaches the last monster, and right then, a massive golden magic circle pops up in front of him. He freezes, caught off guard by what just happened. Han stared at the golden magic circle floating in front of him. He had no idea what it was, and his mind raced with questions. It wasn't something he'd ever seen before, and he couldn't help but feel uneasy as he tried to figure it out. The strange glow and patterns kept drawing his eyes, making him even more curious and a little nervous about what might happen next. One of the soldiers looked around, totally confused when the commander suddenly vanished. He stared at the spot where the commander had been, trying to figure out what just happened. Han hears someone telling him to answer the call. Out of nowhere, golden chains made of magic wrap around him, holding him tight. An old magician showed up, the same guy who had called Han here. He looked surprised that the summoning actually worked and couldn't hide how pumped he was to finally see the hero from another world, someone he'd only heard stories about until now. Han looked down at the glowing shackles locking his wrists. He couldn't figure out what they were or how they worked, and nothing around him looked familiar. He tried to piece together where he might be, but everything just seemed off. The old magician greets him when he arrives in the Empire, treating him like a hero who just dropped in from another world. Out of nowhere, the magician turns to Han and tells him he has to take down the Demon King and rescue their world. Han Young just rolls his eyes, thinking this whole conversation is ridiculous. He's clearly annoyed and wants to know who these people are, where they're from, and what they want from him. He's convinced he's in Korea and pretty much wants to get back to his own business, not wasting any more time on this weird situation. The magician suddenly interrupts him and tells him to stay quiet. He triggered the magical covenant bond called Gaia's, and right away, Han was hit with a wave of pain so strong he couldn't hold back a yell. The magician pointed out that things could have gone a lot smoother if he had just listened from the start. Now, because he didn't pay attention the first time, the magic ended up hurting him. Han winced from the pain, annoyed that the magician didn't even bother to ask him in a decent way. The magician brings it up again. He wants the hero to take down the evil Demon King. He looks down and sees a sword lying on the ground in front of him. Someone turns to him, clearly hoping he'll step up and help save the Empire. The pressure in the room is real, everyone is waiting to see what he'll do next. The magician explains to Han that if he goes through with this plan, there's a chance they might be able to send him back home. Hearing that, Han pays close attention, hoping this could be the way back to his own world. He turns to the guy and wants to know if he'll go along with what they're asking. Han goes along with it, even though he doesn't really want to. Hans remembers the day he got pulled into a different world, a whole empire waiting for him. That's where everything changed, and he found himself starting over, taking on the role of the hero and stepping right into a new fight. He remembers how he kept pushing himself, taking on mission after mission without stopping. No matter how tired he got, he just kept going, always putting himself on the line to get the job done. He kept busy taking on the Empire's non-stop tasks. Day after day, he found himself cutting down enemies, one after another, barely catching his breath before the next order came in. 3 years went by, then 5, then 10. All that time he stayed on the front lines, battling for the Empire and standing against the Demon King's army. He remembers giving up his younger years just to take down the Demon King. Every night he would picture himself going back home, thinking maybe this time he could finally live free. Right after he wrapped up his mission, that familiar old magician showed up again, handing him another job to do. Han pushed back, pretty annoyed because this wasn't what they agreed on. He thought the deal was clear, but the magician wouldn't budge. According to him, beating the Demon King wasn't the end of saving the Empire. There was more left to do. Han realized things were about to get a lot more complicated than he expected. He told him that anyone standing against the War of Unification had to be taken out, or else troublemakers could pop up later. Now there was just one more problem left for Han to handle. The guy he needed to take down was called Bottle, known to be dangerous and tied to the Night Nation. nation. The magician had told him that if he finished the job and took Bottle out, he'd finally be free. The magician looked at him, trying to get him to stick around and help out a bit more. It was obvious the magician was trying to get his way, putting on that fake friendly act to convince him. He knew he was stuck, there was nothing he could do about it. Deep down, he felt trapped, almost like someone who had no freedom at all. Inside, he couldn't help but wish things were different, even though he kept those thoughts to himself. The story moves over to the Night Nation, which is now up in flames. Han stands there, staring at the chaos, tired and stuck, thinking about how long this nightmare will drag on. Right in the middle of the fight, Han pushes forward and lands a solid hit with his sword. Han steps up to face Bottle, his opponent. Bottle thinks Han's too innocent for his own good, but Han stands his ground. Deep down, Han knows he doesn't have many options left, so he just does what he has to do. Steps up and says sorry to Sir Battle. Sir Battle takes a good look at him, realizing who he is. He points out that is the hero who came from another world, making sure everyone knows who just walked in. As he hit the ground, the broken bottle seemed to send a message. There was no point in feeling sorry since he'd be tossed aside soon enough too. Han starts to relax, thinking everything's finished and he can finally head back, but out of nowhere Count Brandenburg shows up right behind him. Hans Young stands there totally caught off guard when the Count actually congratulates him for doing a good job. But before Hans can even process what's happening, the Count suddenly drives his sword straight into Hans's back. Han freezes when he realizes who just stabbed him. It's Count Brandenburg, someone he never expected to turn on him like this. The Count looked at Han and gave him some credit for fighting hard until the very end, especially since Han was both the top commander and the Empire's holy knight. But then the Count couldn't help himself and threw in a sarcastic comment about how you don't usually see someone so loyal, almost calling him a hunting dog for the Empire. Han finally sees what's really going on. The Count isn't who he thought he was, and all those promises about getting back to Earth turn out to be fake. Han has to face the harsh truth he's been lied to. The Count thinks about whether it even makes sense to keep a hunting dog that could end up turning on its owner. The Count says goodbye to Han. As he drops to the ground, he's not surprised. They never planned to let him leave without a fight. In his mind, he's frustrated at all of them, blaming them as he goes down. And lay there taking his final breath with the gem of resurrection shining in his chest. Even as everything faded, the sting of betrayal burned in his mind. He made up his mind right then. He would never let this moment slip from memory. The Empire had tricked him, and one day they would regret it. Han wasn't going to let them get away with what they'd done. That night, Han Young's story quietly came to an end, just as another life began. Somewhere far away, a duchess was being congratulated on having her baby boy Dale. The duchess gently gazed at her newborn, her eyes soft and warm. She let him know she was his mom, showing a calm, caring side that didn't need any words. The room felt peaceful, almost like time slowed down for just the two of them. Han, just a newborn, glances up at the woman and then at the man next to her. Something about the woman's face stands out to him, like he's seen her before, even though he can't quite figure out why. All at once it clicks for him, he knows who the guy is. Everyone knew Duke Jackson. He was the top necromancer and dark magician across the whole empire, the kind of guy whose name even the toughest people whispered about. If you messed with him, you were basically asking for trouble. Han figures out that he's in Necropolis now, the main spot in the empire for all things black magic. Turns out he's actually inside the black magic tower itself. He remembers the resurrection stone actually did its job. That stone, only good for one comeback, had been stashed away by him back when he was stuck as a hunting dog. He'd hidden it, hoping one day it might help him break free. Now whatever happened next was just up to fate. Somehow he ended up as the oldest son in the Jackson family, one of the top noble families in the whole empire. The baby grinned, clearly content with his lucky start in life. He quietly promises himself that when he gets older and figures out necromancy, he'll wipe out the Imperials for good. Duke Jackson sees the baby and realizes something's off. The baby's just lying there, totally silent. The Duchess looked nervous and asked the nurse to check on him carefully. The nurse took a closer look and noticed something odd, but said his breathing sounded perfectly normal. Dale, still just a baby, looks around with a stubborn little frown. In his head, he's kind of annoyed that anyone would expect him to cry. He wonders if these people even know how old he is. The nurse let the Duchess know that his breathing was steady, and there wasn't anything to panic about. The Duke stood there anxious, watching the newborn in silence. The baby hadn't cried yet, and it made him uneasy, like something might be wrong. The nurse tried to calm him down, saying it probably wasn't a big deal. But then she mentioned that if he was still really concerned about the baby not crying, there were things they could try. They figured maybe a few slaps would get him to breathe. The nurse went ahead and gave the baby a couple of firm slaps, leaving him wide-eyed and stunned. Dale, the baby, kept making frustrated little noises every time he got slapped. The Duke looks over and thinks about how stubborn the kid is. The Duchess just smiles, pretty sure he got that stubborn streak from her side of the family. The Duchess smiled and held out her arms, wanting to take the baby herself. Dale watched, annoyed, thinking everyone was overreacting. In his head, he was sure their son was okay and couldn't believe they were making such a big deal out of it. The Duchess stops herself right before her hand reaches Dale, the baby. Dale stares at her wide-eyed and tense, his tiny face showing how upset he is. Inside, he's fuming. His mom pulls him in for a soft hug, careful and calm. A warm hand rests against his small cheek. Out of nowhere, Han's mind flashes back to something important. He thinks back to how he hasn't felt warmth in a long time. It hits him as he remembers that old moment, just sitting by himself, not really knowing what comfort felt like anymore. He notices how gentle his mom is, the way she cares for him. Even though she's a noble, she always finds time to show him some real affection. Han had always kept his emotions locked up in his past life, never once letting himself cry. But now all he could do was break down, his tears streaming as he let it all out, louder than he ever thought he could. 8 years go by after Dale is born. The Duke and his wife are hanging out in their room. The Duke notices how fast the years have flown, and his wife feels the same way. The Duchess wondered if Dale was still hanging out in the study, since he'd been into books ever since he was a little kid. The Duke, trying to lighten the mood, teased her and said Dale probably got that from her. The Duke sat with his wife looking serious. He pointed out that Dale had been showing interest in magic lately. The Duchess, calm but firm, brought up the promise he made to her a while back, making sure he didn't forget what they agreed on. The Duke sat back thinking about the promise he made. He hadn't forgotten. He knew he couldn't teach Dale anything about necromancy. Meanwhile, Dale was off in the library, lost in a book, not even realizing the Duke was keeping his word. The Duchess could tell that he hadn't forgotten, and the Duke let her know everything was all right. The Duke tried to calm her down, shifting the talk to Dale's birthday present for the next day. In the middle of their talk, someone knocked on the door. The Duke glanced over, curious who would show up so late. A maid rushed into the room, calling out for the Duke. He rushes over, clearly freaked out, and lets them know that something's going on with young Master Dale in the study. The Duke and Duchess couldn't believe what just happened. Their faces went pale as they hurried to the library, their steps quick and tense. They searched for Dale, wanting to make sure he was all right. Dale was on his knees in the middle of the room, blue mana swirling all around him. His parents walked in and saw him like that, and their faces changed fast when they realized what was happening. They couldn't help but react, calling out for him as the blue light filled the space. The Duchess hurried over to Dale and wrapped him up in a hug. She looked him over, checking if he was hurt, and tried to figure out what had just happened. Dale let her know he was all right, trying to calm her down. The Duke stood there taking it all in. He could actually sense the mana around him, which caught him off guard. It was wild to think that Dale, who only just turned 8, was already pulling this off. Watching his son, the Duke felt a bit impressed and curious about what else Dale might be able to do. He decided it was time to get his son's attention. The Duke looked at his son with a serious face, wanting to know if Dale was the one who let the mana out. Dale's heart started racing. He knew right away that he messed up, and it hit him that everyone would think something was off. Dale realizes he just used mana way faster than he thought he could. Now he's a little anxious, hoping no one catches on to who he really is. He knows he needs to come up with a response fast, or they might start asking questions. The Duke gave Dale a smile and gently patted him on the head, making it clear how proud he was of him. The Duke mentions that it's too bad he can't teach Dale necromancy. Dale can't believe it. He always figured his father would be the one to show him the ropes. Now he starts to worry about how he's supposed to get revenge without learning those skills. The Duchess told Dale to head back to his room. She let him know the servants would handle the cleanup, so he didn't have to stick around or worry about it. As Dale walked out, the Duke turned to his wife. He was smiling, looking like he'd just come up with a good idea for Dale's present. Later on at Dale's birthday banquet, the place is packed with nobles. Everyone's looking around, noticing that pretty much all the important families from the Black Duke's region showed up for this big event. Everyone's waiting around, looking to see when the young lord is finally going to show up. Dale sat by himself on the second floor of the banquet hall, barely paying attention to all the noise below. The party was dragging on way past the time he thought it would end, and he couldn't help but feel bored just waiting around. He looks around at everyone who showed up for his birthday and can't help but wonder how tiring it must be for them to all come together just for him. He figures that he's probably just not used to being treated well. Back when he was the hero, people didn't exactly go out of their way to be nice to him. Now that everyone's calling him young master and treating him with respect, it still feels pretty weird and out of place. He can't focus on the party at all. His mind keeps drifting back to the desk he broke a few days ago, and he just can't shake the thought that someone's going to notice. He thinks back to how just remembering his old life as a hero made his mana freak out. He can't help but wonder who dropped off that hero biography for him. With all the talent in his new body, he figures there's no way he's passing up the chance to pick up necromancy. He tries to figure out how to get his dad on board. He remembers something about his dad talking about gifts and starts thinking maybe he could ask to learn necromancy as one. But the thought doesn't last long. Just thinking about the way his parents look at him shuts that idea down fast. He sits there weighed down by disappointment when his mother, Duchess, steps in. She lets him know that he's been waiting long enough. Dale walked into the room, spotting his mom right away. She smiled at him and made sure he knew today was special. It was his 8th birthday after all. He spots someone standing behind his mom and wonders who it might be. His mom gives him a little nudge, signaling that he should go over and say hi. His mom brings in the guest. It's Ms. an elf from the Blue Magic Tower. She's known for being really smart and knows everything there is about water magic. Dale's mom tells him that Miss is going to be his new teacher. He can't believe it when Miss steps up and he's caught off guard. She seems excited and Dale isn't sure what to think. Dale's mom tells him happy birthday one more time. He looks around trying to figure out what's going on. It turns out someone from the Magic Tower has been picked to teach him. He realizes they're set on having him learn water magic, which is mostly about defense and messing with opponents. That pretty much tells him his mom seriously wants to steer him clear of anything to do with dark magic. Later on, Ms. pulls Dale aside and asks if they can talk privately. Dale nods and goes with her. Let him know she was just there to teach him water magic, nothing else. She looked at him with a knowing glance, trying to figure out if he was let down since he probably hoped to pick up a different kind of magic. Dale didn't expect to catch on so quickly. She seemed to understand exactly why he was interested in necromancy and the magic his dad used. For her, it made total sense that Dale would want to know more about it. Everyone in the Empire already knows about the Black Duke's marriage situation. Explains what happened. Back when the Duke was trying to win over Lady, she was nervous about all the rumors that followed him. To make her feel better, he made a promise that he wouldn't let their kids get involved in his business. Thinks back to the wedding day. He remembers how the elders from the Black Magic Tower showed up, but instead of their regular black robes, they all wore pure white. It was strange seeing them like that, so different from what everyone was used to. The memory stands out in his mind, almost like a weird photo you'd see online, something you couldn't forget even if you tried. She tells him their marriage was based on that promise, so for now, learning dark magic isn't really an option. Still, she lets him know she's not giving up and will try to get Lady on board someday. For now, she wants him to stick to what she's teaching. Dale shoots back with his own question. He points out that since she's an elf, she's supposed to care about the laws of nature. He wants to know if she really thinks using black magic and bringing the dead back is okay. Looked amused by the question, finding it kind of interesting. Instead Instead of giving a straight answer, she turned it around and asked Dale about the holy power priests used to raise the dead. She wanted to know if he thought that counted as the will of nature. Dale didn't see that coming and was caught off guard by her reply. Looks at things differently, she can't see any real difference between necromancy and resurrection. Dale picks up on how unusual she is compared to the stubborn elves he's met before. He starts to think that maybe, just maybe, she'd be the kind of teacher he actually needs. Lets him know it's time to start the lesson. She brings up how she heard he managed to put together some pieces of a mana circle a few days back. For today, their main goal is to help him build on those pieces and finally create his first real circle. Dale liked the idea right away. All the magic books he checked out said he needed to start with the first circle, so this was his shot to finally make it happen. Gestures for him to put his hand over his chest and focus. He starts to focus, listening as tells him that this place isn't like Earth, here mana is everywhere. Most people wouldn't stand a chance unless they were some super old creature like a dragon. Handling raw mana just isn't doable. That's why people need something to handle all that wild mana. A mana circle in the heart takes care of it. She wraps up the first lesson by laying out what he needs to do next. He has to find all the broken pieces near his heart, put them back together, and then keep the finished circle spinning smoothly around his heart. Dale listens to his teacher and finally gets what she means. He looks at the circle and figures out that it's actually the path marked right on the heart. Tells him to take it easy at first. He should just practice moving the mana in circles around his heart nice and slow. Tells Dale that it usually takes about a month and suggests he shouldn't hurry, but Dale doesn't wait for her to finish and cuts her off. Dale, not really sure of himself, lets know he thinks he pulled it off. Just stares at him, eyes wide, clearly surprised. Watch surprised as the kid who had just started training managed to pull off a perfect circle in just a few minutes. He couldn't help but think about how rare that was, especially for someone so new. It made him curious about what else the kid might be able to do. She figures out that something like this could only happen if the kid has some crazy natural talent, almost like it was dropped on him from above. Watched as Dale focused on the circle he'd made with his hands. She motioned for him to give it a shot, curious to see if he could channel his magic through it. Dale hesitated for a second, not sure if he was doing it right, but he went for it anyway, hoping something would happen. Dale nodded, ready to go along with the plan. Meanwhile, watched and couldn't help but think that most kids wouldn't even be able to get mana flowing through the circle at all. Dale, now carrying Hans's memories, knows he still isn't strong enough to take on the Empire or stand up to Duke Jackson. He remembers how in his last life he could use some seriously dangerous combat magic because of the seals that were marked on his body. But things aren't the same now and he can't rely on that power this time. He notices his new body just takes in mana like it's totally normal, probably thanks to the Black Magic Tower Master's skills. It gets him thinking, maybe now he can pick up other kinds of magic, not just stick with water spells. Dale focuses hard, sending the energy he gathered through his body and out to his fingertips, trying to make something new happen. He pictures the most dangerous shard he can think of, the kind of weapon that could bring the whole empire to its knees. With a steady focus, he manages to create it. Stared at what he'd just done, hardly believing he'd actually pulled off crystallizing that magic right there in his hand and had formed almost perfect. Normally, whenever someone tried to concentrate magic like that and let it go, the shape would just fall apart. Reminded himself of this, still kind of surprised that his spell had actually worked out. Figures that since he's paying so much attention to getting the shape of the spell right, it probably won't be that strong. Dale goes ahead and uses the spell anyway. The ice bolt slams into the tree and bursts apart with a powerful blast. The tree is smashed to pieces and just stands there staring at what's left. He can't believe what he's seeing. Takes a closer look at the ice and notices it's sharp and tough enough to go right through a tree. That kind of accuracy just doesn't add up for someone who's only 8. Dale turns around looking completely relaxed, a small smile on his face like he doesn't have a care in the world. Meanwhile, stares at him, her mind racing as she tries to figure out what's really going on with this kid. Stared at what just happened, surprised. She expected him to just shift the mana a little, but instead he went further and actually used magic, mixing it with ice. Even though the spell was pretty simple, he pulled it off like a pro, making it even stronger by pulling in the cold air around him. Dale looked around, not really sure if he'd messed something up. He seemed pretty unsure, almost expecting someone to point out what he'd done wrong. Looks at the magic formula and knows it's way too advanced for a kid to make by accident. He's sure this isn't something any normal child could just pull off without knowing. She notices he's using 3 different moves, rotation, acceleration, and compression all at once. People call this combo the golden ratio of military magic. She realizes he pulled off a flawless spell for taking down enemies without even meaning to, and honestly, it's pretty surprising. Dale tries calling her again, but she just brushes it off and says it's nothing important. Watching all this, starts to realize why the Duke the Black had looked so regretful before. It finally clicks for her and she gets where his feelings came from. Later on, went to see the Duke to give her report. The Duke looked at her, caught off guard when she mentioned that she couldn't teach Dale. The Duke pointed out that since the kid managed to reach the first circle so fast, it made even more sense to start teaching him right away. Explains how right after Dale finished the first circle, he pulled off a flawless slaughter spell. The Duke can't believe what he's hearing, it totally catches him off guard. Thinks it's pretty wild that an 8-year-old kid could come up with a spell using something as precise as the golden ratio, which is usually only seen in serious military stuff. Even for someone like him, it's tough to wrap his head around. She finishes her report and lets the Duke know what she's figured out. Dale isn't just any kid. He's got a real knack for taking people out. The Duke paused, thinking things over. He wanted to know if Ms. was refusing to teach Dale. It was a big deal because she was an elder from the Blue Tower, a group known for standing against violence and killing. Shakes her head, not agreeing with what's being said. Deep down, she knows that's exactly why she wants to step in and help him out. She feels like it's up to her to make sure he doesn't go off track, so she decides she'll be the one to show him how things should be done. The Duke just nodded like he saw no point in saying no. Goes on letting everyone know that young Master Dale already has his eyes set on a specific kind of magic. He wants to learn the same dark magic that the Duke uses. Dale's face shows that he didn't expect someone to call him out on it. Keeps talking, letting everyone know she's heard about the Black Mage and his love story. She says she respects the promise he made to Lady. She makes it clear that even though there's a promise, he can't just choose what his kid does with his life. Especially since the young lord is actually really skilled, everyone can see it. At the top of the stairs, Dale was trying to listen in, hoping to catch something interesting. But all the words just sounded like noise to him, and he had no idea what they were actually talking about. He looks annoyed, pretty sure they're whispering about him. He's caught off guard by how strong his first spell turned out. Even Lady from the tower looked like she didn't see that coming. He let out a deep sigh, realizing he had to start paying more attention to how he used his power. From now on, he promised himself he'd be more careful. Just as Dale is lying on the floor, lost in thought, someone calls out for him. He hears his name and quickly gets up, a smile spreading across his face. The guy in armor stood there. Dale spotted him and got pumped. He knew right away it was Uncle. Curious, Dale wanted to know what brought his uncle here. The main thing on his mind was finding out where the guy had been all this time. Just laughed it off, saying he was only doing his job, keeping the duchy safe like always. He tells them he's been busy taking out some scary monsters, then picks Dale up and holds him tight. Dale smiles to himself as he realizes his uncle's off exploring a dungeon. Dale remembers how in this world, whenever dungeons show up or monsters start flooding in, it always turns into a huge deal for everyone in the province. It's been that way ever since the days when the Demon King caused trouble. Monster attacks on towns always leave a mess behind. Houses get smashed up, streets are torn apart, and people end up losing stuff they care about. Every time it happens, the place never looks the same. The knights in the province had one main job: clear out the dungeons that were still left over from when the Demon King ruled. They spent most of their time tracking down these dangerous places, making sure nothing bad could come out and threaten everyone again. For them, it was all about keeping the peace and making the land safer for everyone living there. Dale talks about how bad things have gone in the Duchy of Saxon. Monsters are spilling out everywhere because the dungeon got breached, but it's not just the usual mess. This time it's way worse than normal, and it all goes back to Han. Something he did in his past life is the reason everything's out of control now. Dale knows it, and Han knows it too. Dale tells them how in his past life he took down the Demon King. After that, the Duke of Saxon got a big job. He was supposed to clear out all the monsters from the old Demon King's territory. That land was now his to manage, but only if he could make it part of the Empire. He sees it as making other people handle the stuff nobody wants to do. Back in the present, Dale hoped Uncle would stay safe. Hearing that, Uncle could tell Dale actually cared about him, and it meant a lot. Just then, the Duke shows up. Dale sees him and tries to get his dad's attention. Walked up to the Duke, who gave him a quick smile and nodded, looking pretty pleased with how handled things during the campaign. Duchess steps into the room, noticing the crowd and trying to figure out what's going on. Dale glances over, trying to guess what his mom is up to this time. Spotted Dale and hurried over, her energy obvious. She'd heard he'd made it to the first circle and couldn't hide how impressed she was. She started fussing over him, clearly proud and maybe a little surprised at how far he'd come. The Duke smiled at Dale and congratulated him. He let Dale know that if he ever needed anything, he could go straight to his father and ask. Dale pauses for a moment, unsure if wanting to learn necromancy would make him look sneaky. He tries to come up with something more typical for someone his age to wish for. Out of nowhere, Dale says he wants a little sister. The Duke and Duchess both freeze up, not expecting that kind of request. Their faces turn red as they try to figure out how to respond. The Duke stumbles over his words, clearly not sure what to say, but promises he'll give it a shot. Dale just grins and encourages them, totally hyped about the idea. Captain was stretched out on the grass outside the tower, cracking up. He couldn't stop himself even though the other knights were nearby. One of them asked him to knock it off, probably because Dale had just thrown out some weird request. The whole scene was a little awkward, but didn't seem to care. He just kept laughing like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. Dale lays on his bed staring at the ceiling. Acting like he's younger than he really is wears him out, and he wonders if that's what's making him so drained. He thinks about the magic he's used and can't help but question if that's part of why he's so tired. All of a sudden, pain hits him hard. Dale finds himself stuck in a nightmare, one that drags him back to his days as Han. In this dream, Brandenburg shows up looking right at him. It's clear that a lot of time has passed since they last saw each other, and the way Brandenburg greets him just makes everything feel even more intense. The memories from Dale's past come rushing back, making it hard for him to tell if he's still dreaming or if any of this is real. Brandenburg laughs at him, pointing out how quickly he's changed and saying he's gotten soft. He keeps messing with him, bringing up his new life, how he's got good parents now and a place to call home. He hints that since he's got a warm bed and a full stomach these days, maybe he's already forgotten about getting back at the people who hurt him. His face shifts and suddenly there's this creepy grin. It's clear he's trying to mess with Han, almost daring him to run because no matter what, the Empire's still coming for him. He lets him know they won't stop looking for him. No matter how long it takes, they're going to hunt him down and make sure he disappears for good, like he was never there at all. Dale jolts awake, breathing hard. All around him, mana bursts out in every direction, wild and out of control. He tries to get his bearings, thrown off by the chaos happening right where he slept. He grabs his chest, pain shooting through him like his heart might burst. Dale finally gets what's happening. It's that mana overflow he'd only heard stories about. Right away, he blames those Imperials, annoyed and frustrated at the mess they've caused. He figures they'll keep bothering him no matter what. He stepped outside for some fresh air, hoping it would help clear his head. The overflow keeps getting worse. Teachers showed up out of nowhere and noticed that Dale wasn't looking so good. Dale didn't expect her to notice, and it caught him off guard. Could tell the kid was dealing with mana overflow, something that's pretty normal for someone with his talent. Still, there was something off about him, an uneasy vibe that made her stay on guard. Gently rests her hand on Dale, hoping to settle the wild energy inside him. She knows that if anger ever takes over this kid's magic later on, things could get out of hand. She manages to steady the wild mana before things get out of hand. Dale sees that the mana overflow is gone now. When calls out to him, he hears her and answers back. Tells him that magic works differently for everyone because it reflects what's inside a person's heart. Even if two people use the same spell, the way it turns out depends on who's casting it. She lets him know that his magic comes with a natural skill for ending life, which is a pretty risky thing to have. As she explains this, she gives him a book. Thinks it's actually pretty lucky that she's the one who gets to show him the ropes. Dale's eyes go wide when he spots the book. It takes a second, but then it clicks. This isn't just any old book, it's all about necromancy. His stomach drops as he figures out what he's looking at. Smiled at him, thinking that maybe fate really did bring them together. She hoped he had a great birthday. Dale couldn't hold back his emotions and went right in for a hug with his teacher. At first, his teacher didn't see it coming, but then just smiled and gave Dale a quick pat on the head, joking around about how Dale still acts like a kid sometimes, even now. A couple of days passed, and Dale headed out to the open fields beyond the north gate with. While they walked, Dale brought up the rabbit, wanting to know what happened to it. Spots the rabbit and reminds Dale about those old hunting trips with his dad. Dale takes a moment, thinking back, then gets himself set to go. Dale turns his attention to the rabbit, watching it carefully. He throws out an ice spell that hits hard, freezing the thing right where it stands. Keeps an eye on him. He just ended someone's life, but his hands stay steady, not even a shake. She says his name, noticing how even with the same kind of magic, everyone has their own way of using it. Teacher kept the lesson going, bringing up what happened with the rabbit. She focused on Dale, wanting him to think about why his hands stayed steady when he ended its life. Dale honestly didn't know the answer. Took a moment to explain that magic at its core reflects what's going on inside a person's mind, almost like holding up a mirror to your thoughts. Magic in this world works in a pretty unique way. Whenever someone uses it, the spell actually shows what's going on inside their heart. The energy they use called pulls out whatever they're feeling or thinking and brings it to life. That's why you can always tell what a person's really about just by watching their magic in action. Dale just sits there quietly, paying attention to everything going on around him. He doesn't say a word, just takes it all in, trying to figure out what's really happening. Keeps talking, pointing out how spell names like Firewall are really just there to help people picture what's happening in their heads. The magic used in other towers works the same way. It's all about giving the mind something solid to imagine. The Red Tower believes in keeping things under control by showing strength and making sure everyone follows the rules. Meanwhile, the Blue Tower thinks the best way to keep order is by working together and making sure people get along. She notices that the way each tower uses magic kind of matches how they think and what they believe in. She mentions there are more towers out there, not just the red and blue ones. There's also black, white, and green, and each one has its own way of seeing things. She suddenly stops and tells Dale he's not ready for this lesson yet, which just leaves him standing there, confused and unsure about what's going on. Starts showing him how necromancy works for real, starting with the simplest stuff. She grabs the rabbit he took down earlier and uses it to teach him how to bring a dead thing back as a zombie. She lets him know that this kind of magic works by using mana to bring dead bodies back, so the person casting the spell can make them move however they want. Dale gets to work remembering what he learned earlier. He carefully attaches the glowing threads, starting with the corpse's head, then moving down to the spine and finally the knees. He's focused, making sure each thread is in the right spot, hoping this is how it's supposed to be done. Dale manages to keep the magical energy steady, not letting it spin out of control this time. His teacher actually notices and gives him a nod, looking kind of impressed. Dale can't help but feel good about himself, realizing all that practice is finally paying off. She tells Dale to go for the next spell and he nods, ready to give it a shot. Right in front of him, the zombie rabbit stands there, glowing with this weird purple light. Dale narrows his focus, channeling all his energy into casting the frozen armor spell. He manages to trap the zombie rabbit inside a layer of ice, locking it in place. Looks over the armor he just finished making and thinks it actually turned out pretty well. She gives him a quick smile, then gets ready to see how well his defense can hold up. Without wasting any time, she starts preparing her own ice spell, looking focused and determined. Fires off a freezing shot of ice straight at the armored rabbit. The armor takes the hit and holds up just long enough before breaking apart. Dale can't help but feel proud. He actually managed to stop his teacher's strike, even if it only lasted a second. He grins to himself, pumped that his plan worked, at least for now. Gives Dale another compliment and she can tell he's got something on his mind. She asks if there's anything he wants and Dale instantly lights up, clearly excited to say yes. Dale goes up to his teacher hoping to learn water magic too. He's already working on necromancy, but he thinks mastering water spells could make him even stronger. Dale figures having both skills will give him an edge, so he decides to ask for help with both at the same time. Smiles, looking calm, but then she turns him down without hesitating. Dale didn't see that coming and he just stands there trying to process what she said. She lets him know that what he pulled off today is just the starting point when it comes to water magic. She tells him that water magic gets harder the more you try to learn it. Just like other kinds of magic, you need to really understand how it works if you want to get better at it. It's not something you just pick up overnight. It takes a lot of focus and effort as you go deeper. For most beginners, just picking up a single spell is already pretty tough. The thought of trying to handle two types of magic at the same time started running through his mind. Being a dual magician sounded crazy tough, but also kind of cool. He wondered if he could actually pull it off, or if it was just something people talked about but never really did. At his age, it's really tough, and to her, it just looks like he's trying way too hard. Dale hears the word ambition and it really hits him. Even after everything he's done, she still looks at him like he's not enough. It kind of stings, and he can't help but think about all the times he's tried to prove himself. He's let down, thinking back to her promise that they'd figure things out as a team. Notices what's going on with him, and decides it's time to wrap up the lesson for the day. That night, Dale sits alone in the study. He's got this look in his eyes, focused, almost stubborn. He's set on figuring things out by himself, not wanting any help. He throws himself into studying on his own, sitting in the middle of swirling dark magic energy. Even though no one's there to help him, he's set on figuring out magic by himself. The next morning, his teacher noticed right away that he looked tired. Checked on Dale, noticing he looked a bit tired. Dale had stayed up late the night before, working on something he wanted to get just right. told Dale not to push himself too hard, and Dale nodded, understanding where she was coming from. Later, out on the snowy plains, Dale shows what he's been working on. He combines a dark magic circle with his ice magic, carefully putting a tougher, spiked layer of frozen armor onto the zombie rabbit. Notices how he's doing everything perfectly now, picking up on the fact that he's really got it down. Out of nowhere, the ice armor breaks apart, sending sharp pieces flying everywhere. Freezes for a second, caught off guard. He tries to figure out if this is some kind of frost explosion. But things get even weirder when the zombie rabbit starts pulling in some dark energy, like it's powering up for something big. The rabbit suddenly sets off a corpse explosion. The ice shards shot through the air, teaming up with a burst of darkness. Together, they rush straight at, closing in fast. Stands in the middle of falling ice shards and swirling darkness. The cold stings her skin and the air feels heavy, packed with strange energy. She braces herself, trying to figure out what's happening as the world around her gets more intense and unpredictable. Once the attack dies down, Dale finds himself standing in front of his teacher. She's safe behind her magic shield, looking pretty calm. Dale starts explaining what he did. He used corpse explosion together with frost explosion. Basically, he managed to mix water magic with dark magic for his move. He stood there, a small grin on his face, holding a ball of ice in one hand and a ball of dark magic in the other. He wondered if this was proof enough that he could handle both types of magic at once. Just stands there, frozen, looking around at all the wreckage. She realizes this is a way of fighting she hasn't come across before. She takes a second to figure out what just happened. The frozen armor blew up with ice, and at the same time the dead body went off too. The blasts combined, hitting a bigger area than she expected. She notices sharp ice shards and rabbit bones stuck all over the place, looking like a bunch of tiny knives. She thinks this move is meant for one thing, taking someone out. It's the kind of skill you'd expect from a person who spent their whole life fighting nonstop. Can't help but worry about what's going on in the kid's head. Dale picks up on how quiet she's gotten, but before he can really think about it, he spins around and calls out to her. The knight helmet rides up on his horse, lifting a hand in greeting toward the young lord and Ms. Dale looks over at him, curious, and wonders if he just got back from another dungeon run. Explains that this time they were just taking down a small group of monsters. He mentions that the Black Cavalry ran into some trouble. The Black Cavalry had a reputation that everyone knew about. They were Duke Saxon's top knights and nobody wanted to mess with them. When they charged onto the battlefield, their lances glowed with a weird energy that cut through anything in their way. People who saw them said it was like watching an unstoppable force. The guy in charge of them all is the Knight Commander, sir. Turns out he's actually one of the 7 swords on the continent. Dale looked over at, hoping he hadn't forgotten about the promise to teach him how to use a sword. He trusted more than anyone else for this, thinking there was really no one better to show him the ropes. Laughs and gives Dale a friendly nod, letting him know he's always welcome. Dale grins back, thinking he'll definitely come by again soon. Nods and tells the young lord it's pretty cold out, so he should head back inside. He hopes the kid gets home safe. When the lesson wrapped up, teacher brought up heading back to the tower. Dale was cool with it, so they started making their way over. Later that night, the Duchess and the Duke called Ms. over. They had something they wanted to ask her. Tells everyone straight up that young Lord Dale has already nailed the basics for both necromancy and water magic. The Duke's face turns sour. He clearly isn't happy and points out that they already told her to help him learn. Checks things out and nods, letting everyone know it's just water magic. Stands her ground, explaining that as a teacher, her job is to help her student learn what he's interested in. Dale wasn't just curious about water magic, he wanted to know more than that. Just wanted to support his interests, even if they went beyond what people expected. Duchess steps in, realizing this is what Dale wants. She turns to and tells her to keep teaching Dale water magic. Nodded, deciding to go along with their plan. The Duke and Duchess look pretty relieved and thankful, glad that she was on board. Before heading out, takes a moment to apologize to Duchess. She knows had promised the Duke not to teach Dale anything about necromancy, but things didn't really go as planned. Feels bad for putting in that spot. After walked out, the Duchess let out a quiet sigh. She looked at her son, thinking how different he was from other kids his age. Most 8-year-olds were just starting to learn basic magic, but her son was already handling 2 kinds. That sort of thing didn't happen every day. Sometimes she gets scared, but deep down she knows this is just part of who he is. As she stands there, the Duke says her name. Out of nowhere, the Duke lets everyone know he's planning to teach Dale necromancy on his own. This catches her off guard, since she never expected someone like him to take an interest in showing Dale the ropes personally. He had a few reasons for what he was doing. As a lord, he wanted his heir to be ready for all the responsibilities that would come with the title someday. At the same time, as a magician, he saw real potential in the student and wanted to guide him. As a dad, he hopes his son will carry on what he started. The Duke felt pretty bad about not keeping his word to his wife. He tried hard to make it up to her, but let him know she got where he was coming from. Even though things were tense, she understood why he did what he did. Out in the city, people still talk behind their hands about necromancy, calling it the magic of death. No one wanted to be seen near it, and the rumors just kept spreading, making things harder for both. She tells him that's the reason she wanted to stop it before, but now she wants something different. She asks him to help Dale get strong enough as a necromancer to take down those people without any trouble. The Duke watched her closely, clearly affected by what just happened. She stepped forward and hugged him, letting him know she really got it. He nodded, showing he was on the same page. In that moment, he made up his mind. He was ready to put everything on the line to help their son become the best he could be. Later on, the Duke starts his first lesson with Dale. It's pretty clear he's not happy with Dale's progress so far. The Duke doesn't try to hide how let down he feels, and the whole thing feels heavy for Dale, like he's already messed up before even getting started. The Duke looked at his son, clearly not happy. He wanted to know if his son had been handling the dead this whole time without even knowing what he was dealing with. The Duke's face showed he was frustrated, maybe even disappointed, as he tried to get his son to understand how serious this really was. Dale frowned, frustration building up inside him. His teacher had barely shown him the basics and now he was stuck unsure what anyone expected from him. It just didn't add up. Dale showed his dad the simple magic tricks he'd picked up. His dad didn't waste any time. He took Dale straight to the Black Duke's magic workshop down in the castle's basement. The Duke looked at Dale seriously, making it clear that while Dale was training with him, he had to drop the old, basic magic tricks he used before. The Duke let everyone know that the first lesson was about memorizing every bone and muscle in every living creature. Dale sits in his room, books stacked all around him. Every week his dad checks in and Dale just gives a quick nod or says he's fine. Dale spots the books and quickly figures out they're the kind of heavy medical stuff only doctors used to mess with back in his old world. He spends a bunch of days just soaking up every page, not really stopping for anything else. When he finally gets through all of it, his dad lets him know he's covered the basics. Dale feels pretty pumped knowing he's finally about to get into some real magic he can actually use. The Duke lets him know that things are about to get serious, and this is where the real training starts. Dale stopped in front of the goblin's body, surprised by what he saw. His dad noticed right away that Dale looked confused and gave him a knowing smile, like he'd seen this reaction before. The Duke points out that a weak magician can only make his body shuffle around like a zombie, but if a magician really knows what he's doing, he can actually turn a regular foot soldier's corpse into a powerful death knight. The Duke pointed at the goblin's body on the ground. He explained to everyone that at the moment there was just one undead soldier with them. Then looking straight at Dale, he wanted to see what Dale would do next, basically putting him on the spot about how he planned to move it. Dale steels himself and grabs hold of the goblin's body, starting to drag it across the ground. It's heavier than he expected and the rough surface makes it even harder. He grits his teeth and keeps pulling, determined to get the job done even though it's kind of gross and his arms are already getting tired. He quickly notices that taking down the goblin isn't nearly as easy as dealing with the rabbit. This thing stands upright and has way more bones, making it trickier to handle. He finds out that connecting his mana threads is a lot more complicated this time. He has a tough time getting the corpse to move. Every step is slow and awkward, like the body just won't listen to him no matter how hard he tries. He moves, but it's weird, almost like his body's not totally his own. Every step takes extra effort, like he's trying to make a clunky robot do what he wants. It's awkward and kind of exhausting, but he pushes through, hoping no one notices how off it feels. Dale starts to second-guess himself after using rigor magic on the corpse. The defense is up, sure, but now the joints and muscles are locked tight, making it almost impossible to move. He can't help but wonder if this was the right call. He just stands there, frozen, totally lost about what to do next. The Duke stepped in and let Dale know that speeding up rigor to make the corpse stronger was actually a smart move. But the problem is, it makes moving around way harder than usual. The Duke told his son to pay attention, then stepped up and took over the body himself. A strange, dark energy started to surround him, making it clear he was using some kind of magic. The room grew tense as everyone realized just how serious things were getting. Dale stands frozen, watching his dad bring the dead body to life like it's nothing. He can't believe what he's seeing, his mind races, trying to make sense of it all. It's like the world just flipped upside down and Dale isn't sure how to react. The Duke starts talking about the and how it basically works. He points out how it's supposed to protect important stuff inside, like the heart and lungs. As he goes on, everyone listens, trying to picture what he's saying. The mood in the room feels serious, with people thinking about how fragile the human body can be, even with all that built-in protection. The organ's main job is to keep the important stuff inside the body safe. He wonders out loud, thinking that dead people probably don't care about protecting what's inside them anymore. Nobody really knew why they just left things alone, but the Duke never wasted time thinking about it. He got right to work, messing with the body until it twisted into sharp blades and long, creepy claws started sticking out. The Duke told his son that before doing anything, he needed to figure out how the creature in front of him was put together. Once he understood that, he could start changing it to do what he wanted. Dale realizes this must be how dark magic starts. He looks over at his dad, impressed. Dale was curious about the beliefs behind the Black Tower, so he turned to his dad for answers. The Duke keeps it real and just says the truth, not bothering to drag things out. The Duke tells them that when someone dies, that's when you really find out what's real. That's why he thinks it's important for everyone to get it. He knew he had to deal with everything life threw at him if he wanted to figure out the real answer. When the Duke rests his hand on Dale's shoulder, something from Dale's old life as hand hits him. It's one of those memories that just shows up out of nowhere, the kind you wish you could forget. Suddenly, Dale isn't just standing there, he's remembering stuff he thought he'd left behind. The guy was down on his knees in front of him, surrounded by flames, desperately pleading for the hero to let him live. Hand tunes out the desperate cries around him and lifts his sword, still dripping with blood, ready to finish the job. Thinking about that memory, Dale gets chills. The Duke glanced over and saw that the kid looked really pale. He could tell something was up and wanted to check if he was alright. Dale snaps out of it and gives his head a quick shake. Dale let his dad know he was okay. As days went by, Dale's magic started getting stronger. Word got around the Empire that Duke Saxon was teaching him some dark magic, and people everywhere started talking about it. Word spread fast when the Duke broke his marriage promise. People in the noble circles started talking, and everyone seemed surprised that he'd go back on his word. It wasn't something they expected from someone like him, so the news definitely got people's attention. Everyone started watching Dale closely after that. All eyes were on him, especially the nobles from the Empire. He couldn't go anywhere without people whispering or staring, trying to figure out what he'd do next. The Empire's nobles started keeping a close eye on him, never letting their attention slip. A few weeks later, everyone was back at the Duchy's training ground. The place looked about the same, with swords lined up and the dirt kicked up from all the practice. Some of the guys stretched or messed around, waiting for whatever came next. The air felt lighter, like things had finally settled down a bit, but there was still this buzz. Everyone knew training here wasn't exactly easy. Dale spends his afternoon training hard with his uncle, swinging a wooden sword over and over. He focuses on every move, trying to keep up with steady pace. Even though his arms get tired, Dale keeps pushing himself to do better, determined not to fall behind. The two of them go at it, trading punches and kicks without holding back. Dale steps in fast and swats its hand, sending the sword clattering to the ground. Stood frozen, his eyes wide as his sword slipped from his grip and clattered to the ground. Couldn't help but laugh, clearly impressed by what the young lord just pulled off. He nodded, showing some respect for the move. Dale stood his ground, not letting his guard down, and made it clear that a guy like him wouldn't just let his sword slip away that easily. Dale thinks isn't giving it his all. Watching hold back, Dale can't help but feel a little annoyed, like he's not being taken seriously. It's almost like treating this as practice instead of a real challenge, and Dale just wants him to stop holding back and fight for real. Shakes his head, not buying any of it. He stands his ground, saying what he did was all about real sword skills, and that honestly most people wouldn't have survived even one hit. Watch Dale handle the sword like a pro. He couldn't help but notice how smooth and sharp Dale's moves were. Even though Dale was known for his magic, thought it was kind of a waste that someone so good with a sword didn't stick to using it more. He points out that magicians usually have guards around them and use magic to keep themselves safe. Dale keeps pushing himself way harder than anyone else, and honestly there's no real reason for it. Some people start wondering why he's putting in all this extra effort. Spots the bandages on Dale's hand and can't help but step in. He tells Dale not to go so hard that he ends up hurt. Dale just nods, making it clear he's got his own reasons for pushing himself. Dale smiled as he talked about how lame it would be if the Duke's son just hid behind guards and magic to stay safe. He knows this is a huge opportunity. Getting to train with one of the 7 swords of the continent is something most people only dream about. There's no way he's letting this chance slip by. Couldn't help but crack up, clearly impressed by the way Dale handled things. Deep down, he really wished he had a son like Dale, someone who could keep up and wasn't afraid to speak his mind. Dale grinned to himself. He'd been waiting for this moment, finally getting some real recognition from. It felt like all his hard work was starting to pay off. Just then, Duchess shows up and notices how everyone's in a good mood. Dale spots her and gives a fast hello. Dale wondered what brought his mom all the way out to this freezing place. She told him she wanted to check in and see how hard he was working. She mentions that she has something to tell him too, and brings up the birthday gift he wanted. Dale stands there, looking a bit lost as he tries to recall what gift he even wanted in the first place. The scene jumps back to when he was younger, remembering the time he asked his parents if he could have a little sister. Dale didn't expect that at all, and the news totally caught him off guard. His mom gives him a smile, reminding him that looking after his little sister is now his job. Dale nods right away, looking super pumped and ready to go. You can tell he's all in, barely able to hide how excited he is. About 10 months later, Dale stood by his newborn sister, checking her out with wide eyes. He couldn't get over how tiny she was. Watching her squirm in her blanket, he just stared, kind of blown away by the whole thing. Dale reached out and gently touched his baby sister's cheek. He still couldn't get over the fact that she was actually his little sister. To him, she was just awesome. Dale's mom looks at him, waiting to see if he'll hold the baby. He pauses, his hands fidgeting a little, not sure if he's ready for this. His mom gives him a look, kind of telling him to stay strong and not give up. The Duke doesn't seem worried at all and just lets him know that carrying her wasn't tough for him before, like it was no big deal. Dale carefully held his baby sister in his arms, looking down at her tiny face. His mom watched them both, pointing out how much the little one resembled Dale when he was younger. Duchess notices something unexpected. Whenever the baby's father holds her, she always cries and fusses. But right now, as Dale holds her, she's completely calm. She even has a quiet smile, looking totally content in his arms. Can't help but be a little surprised by how peaceful the baby seems with Dale. Dale stood there holding his baby sister for the first time. She was tiny and warm, barely moving in his arms. His dad watched from nearby, curious about how Dale was handling it. Dale wasn't really sure what to think, he just knew he had to be careful and not mess things up. There was a weird mix of pride and nerves, like when you're handed something super important and everyone's watching to see what you'll do. Dale tells his dad that even though she barely weighs anything, he still feels like he's carrying something heavy. The Duke looked at him seriously, making it clear that this was what life could feel like sometimes, heavy and real. He wanted the boy to remember this moment and not let it fade away. Dale's mom let him know it was time for his lesson. Miss was already waiting, so he had to get moving. The scene moves over to the snowy plains. Teacher lets Dale know that today's lesson is going to be a real training duel. Dale looked unsure, not really believing he could go through with hitting her. Just nodded at him, telling him with her eyes to stop holding back and give it everything he's got. Dale nodded and got to work on setting up a magic circle. Got ready too, curious to see how much Dale had improved since last time. Dale starts things off by firing a big chunk of ice straight at his teacher. Barely flinches as the attack comes at her. She snatches the right out of the air, crushing it in her grip like it's nothing. To her, this kind of move is way too slow, especially for the first strike. She holds up the last ice shard, messing with him. Dale just stands there, frozen by how she's acting. Suddenly hurls the shard straight at Dale, catching him off guard. She shouts for him to put up his shield, pushing him to react fast. The ice projectile slams into the ground right where Dale is, setting off an explosion. Dale pushes himself up off the ground, his mind racing with what could have happened. If he hadn't managed to block that hit, things would gotten pretty bad for him. Watches him, pretty impressed by how fast he pulled off the ice shield spell to keep himself safe. Seemed pretty happy with how Dale did and wanted him to give it another shot. Dale took a deep breath, cleared his head, and decided to go for a different spell this time, one called Ice Wall. Dale drops to his knees and presses his hands against the ground. He focuses, and the ice wall starts to form, slowly pushing up from the earth just like he wanted. Didn't expect that at all. He paused for a second, trying to figure out why his opponent would suddenly throw up an ice wall right in the middle of a duel. It didn't make sense to him, since most people would go for something more aggressive. Notices that Dale did something to make the ice way tougher than usual. It isn't just regular ice anymore, it's almost as strong as steel now. Dale must have used some kind of formula or trick to make the ice's structure a lot denser, so breaking it is going to be way harder than anyone expected. She keeps thinking about why he suddenly pulled back, guessing he probably just needs a second to recover after that last hit she landed. Behind the wall, Dale was quietly getting ready to use a new spell he'd been working on, something called Ice Explosion. He focused, running through the steps of the fragmentation formula formula in his head, making sure he didn't mess it up when the time came. He tells the wall to blow up. The huge ice wall suddenly blows apart, sending sharp ice shards flying everywhere. His eyes go wide as she figures out the blast was meant to shoot those shards in all directions. Before she can react, she notices she's right in the path of the flying ice. Dale pumped his fist, pretty happy with how his attack turned out. He couldn't help but replay the spell in his mind, impressed that he actually pulled it off. He started by making a tough ice barrier, something that most people would have trouble breaking. Then he pushed it even further, squeezing it, and after that he adds some explosive magic, basically turning the whole thing into a grenade. In his mind, he knew that strengthening the ice first and then packing it together made it way more dangerous when the magic hit. Dale stands there watching the smoke rise. He's sure of himself, thinking his teacher won't be able to avoid this one. Dale spots his teacher's shape in the smoke and feels a rush of concern. When he notices her body suddenly stop moving and break apart, worry hits him hard and he calls out her name, hoping she's okay. Out of nowhere, the Real shows up, grinning as she stands behind the ice statue that looks just like her. Dale freezes for a second, trying to process what's happening. It hits him that the thing he just watched break wasn't actually at all, it was just a fake. Notice how sharp his skills were when a tiny cut showed up on her cheek from his attack. She never thought someone with just first circle magic could actually hurt one of the tower elders. Dale realizes he messed up and says sorry right away, trying to explain that it wasn't on purpose. Doesn't seem upset at all. Instead, she lets him know she understands and even tells him she's thankful for what happened. Dale hears this and honestly can't figure out why she'd feel that way. Teacher looked at Dale, thankful for her injury. To her, it meant Dale trusted her enough to not hold back and show how strong he really was. Knelt down in front of Dale, her face calm and proud. As his teacher, she looked genuinely happy, almost like she was showing off how well he'd done. Dale glanced at her, not sure if she really meant it, but its expression stayed warm and real. She seemed honestly proud of him, like he'd finally lived up to her expectations and she wanted him to know it. Reached out and gave Dale a light pat on the head, clearly impressed by what he'd managed to pull off with that magic formula. It was pretty obvious she thought it was something special. Dale, though, didn't try to brag. Instead, he just let her know it was all thanks to what she taught him. Dale goes quiet when he sees his teacher drift off, clearly lost in his own head. Later on, the Duke noticed the cut on Miss cheek and wanted to know what happened. She explained it happened during a lesson with the young lord. She admitted she wasn't experienced enough and got hurt, but also mentioned how surprisingly sharp the spell had been. The Duke can't shake the thought that he owes her, like there's always something he needs to pay back. It's a feeling that sticks with him, making him act a bit more careful around her, like he wants to make things right because of what she's done for him. Says she actually enjoys teaching someone who really gets it. Hearing that, the Duke doesn't waste a second and asks her for another favor, acting like it's no big deal. She lets him know he can say whatever's on his mind. The Duke lets everyone know they've gotten word that orcs have crossed the mountains and slipped into their territory. He says it's not a big deal, just a small group that a squad of knights can take care of easily. He picked Dale to join the fight. Right away, she shook her head, thinking the young lord wasn't ready for something like this. The Duke made it clear that he didn't expect him to become some kind of war hero. Still, as part of the Saxon family, it was his job to look after the territory and keep everyone safe. He knows that being the oldest son means he's got responsibilities, just like everyone else in the family, and he gets that he has to step up and take them seriously. Stood there unsure of her next move. She couldn't help but worry about what was going to happen. The Duke, seeing her hesitation, decided to take things into his own hands. He announced that he was going to give Dale his own personal artifact, making it clear he was stepping in. He looks at her, hoping she'll help him figure out how to handle this new power. He knows he can't do it alone and really wants her advice to get things under control. The artifact is packed with serious power and memories, but using it comes at a big price. Anyone who wants to unlock what it can do has to give up either their own energy or even some of their life. As someone gets stronger, things don't always get easier. Power comes with its own problems, and sometimes it gets risky, dangerous enough that it can actually turn deadly if things go too far. The Duke talks about how the Saxon family has been in charge of these powers for a long time, passing them down from one generation to the next. After that, the story moves to the front of the castle's artifact armory. The Duke looked over at Dale, kind of reminding him that, as the oldest son, he should probably start getting ready for the battle coming up. Dale couldn't believe it when he heard the word battle. At first, he just froze, but then it hit him. He was actually going to fight for real this time. The Duke made it official. Dale was joining the team that would take on the orc horde. Just like that, things got real, and Dale's heart started racing with anticipation. The Duke swung open the armory door, but instead of heading in, he made it clear that there was something important to handle first. Before anything else, the guy had to figure out how to handle the dark power that ran in the Saxon family. Dale walked into the armory, eyes wide as he took in all the strange and cool artifacts lining the shelves. His dad pointed out that these things weren't just for show, they actually came from the Demon Lord's domain. It hit Dale that his family was in charge of keeping all this stuff safe, and that made the whole room feel a lot more important. Dale listens as the story behind the items is explained. They've been passed down through generations, picked up during the battles to take back the Demon Lord's land. These aren't just regular tools, they're something special. As Dale holds them, he can sense the magic coming off each one, almost like a buzz in the air. It's clear these things carry a lot of history and power with them. The Duke looks over each item and makes it clear that they're all dangerous. He tells him to be careful around them and not to mess with anything until he figures out how to handle it properly. While the Duke was talking, he looked over and noticed Dale wasn't there anymore. He started to wonder where Dale had gone. Dale had already walked inside, hoping to find an artifact that actually fit him. Out of nowhere, he catches a strange voice coming from one of the artifacts. It's almost like the thing can tell what's going on inside him, like it knows he's holding onto some anger and wants to get back at someone. More artifacts started to chime in, trying to get his attention. Some wanted him to pick them so they could help him take down their enemies. Another artifact got loud, calling him out and pushing him to put it on and go after everyone. He notices that the dark-powered artifacts start reacting whenever he gets angry about the stuff that's happened to him. It's like they feed off his grudges, getting stronger the more he thinks about what he's been through. None of the ideas seem right to him. He keeps thinking but nothing feels good enough. He knows he wants something way more intense. He comes to a halt when he spots a cloak lying next to him. He can't remember seeing it before and starts to think about how long it's been there. Dale spots the cloak that just showed up next to him and instantly knows it's the Cloak of Shadow. He instantly recognizes the cloak. It belonged to Duke, the top guy in the Demon King's army, the same one he went up against in his last life. The cloak could create shadows that made battles with it way tougher than usual. He grabs the new outfit, pumped to try it on right away. Just as he's about to pull it over his head, his dad calls out, stopping him right before he goes any further. He decides not to listen to the warning and puts it on anyway. Right away, everything around him goes black. It feels like he's floating in the dark, and suddenly there's this voice in his head yelling over and over about being hungry. The words just echo inside him, getting louder each time. The Duke stands outside watching everything unfold. He notices right away that this shadow isn't normal at all. He remembers stories about people using that cloak before, how they could call up huge storms of shadows and control them like they were alive. To control this shadow creature, the person has to fully take charge of it. Dale faces the shadowy creature that's shown up in his mind. Right away, he can tell this thing isn't going to back down easily. Taking control of it is going to be a real challenge. Outside, the Duke and teacher stood watching as a huge ball of shadow swallowed up Dale. Both of them looked pretty tense, eyes fixed on the dark mess in front of them, not sure what was about to happen next. Glanced at the clock, starting to get really uneasy about how much time had slipped by. The Duke noticed her reaction and his face got a little more serious. He let her know that if this dragged on any longer, he wasn't sure he could keep it together. The shadow creature lurking nearby seemed to be waiting for a chance, and the Duke was clearly feeling the pressure. Here's the news, and it really gets to him. He can't hide how upset he is. The Duke sees what's happening and figures there's no other way. It's time to step in and pull the guy out themselves. Just as everyone thinks they might need to step in, the shadows fade away. Dale stands there, now wearing a new cloak. His dad tries to get his attention, and Dale answers him, looking totally calm. Quickly moves over to check on Dale, clearly worried about him. Dale just brushes it off, trying to play it cool and saying he only felt a little sting. The Duke stands there, looking surprised, trying to figure out how Dale could walk away without a scratch. The Duke couldn't help but stare, trying to figure out how such a little kid could handle something that strong. It just didn't make sense to him, and he kept thinking about it, almost like he was replaying the scene in his mind, still pretty surprised by what he saw. Dale steps in with a grin, catching his dad's attention. He's curious and eager, hoping his dad will let him check out more of the cool artifacts. The Duke and freeze when they hear his request. Both of them stare, not sure what to say or do next. The room gets quiet, and it's clear they didn't see this coming. The Duke pauses for a moment, unsure, but eventually nods. Dale lights up, clearly happy, and gets right back to checking out the artifacts in the armory. He spends the whole day there, digging through everything, totally caught up in all the cool stuff he finds. A few days later, out at the Duchess training ground, Sir spots Dale. Right away, he notices the cloak Dale has on. He knows exactly what it is. Sir can't help but react, instantly recognizing it as the Cloak of Shadow. Dale nodded, letting everyone know it was true. Mentioned that this artifact was always tough to deal with and checked to see if Dale was okay. Dale just shrugged it off, saying it didn't really get to him, except for a little tingle. Thinks it's weird, Dale just grins and makes up a quick excuse, joking that the cloak must have gotten lonely or something. As soon as it spotted him, the thing stuck to him right away, maybe just hoping to tag along and be buddies. Couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. He thought it was kind of wild how the young lord looked at something dangerous and just saw a lonely creature instead. Figured most people would just run away or freak out, but the young lord always seemed to see things differently. Dale glanced down at the shadow creature trapped under his boot, barely moving. He felt a silent bit of relief, thinking how his helmet actually helped him out this time. He let the young lord know he had something to ask, and nodded, showing he was ready to help with whatever was needed. Dale steps forward and asks for a real fight to help with his training. He wants to test himself in an actual duel, hoping it'll push him further than just practicing moves. Nodded, clearly pumped up and ready to prove himself. He didn't want to let the young lord down and was set on giving it everything he had. While getting ready for the duel, Dale starts to wonder if he went too far by picking one of the 7 swords of the continent to train with. Just being around this guy is intense, and Dale can't help but feel the pressure. Helmet could see the tension on his face and let him know he'd keep things simple. Just basic sword moves, nothing fancy like aura. Dale watches and starts to wonder if he's actually holding back during their fight. He can't help but think that a real knight should give it everything he's got, no matter who he's up against. He gets ready to attack and dark shadows start to slip out from under his cloak. In his head, he knows this fight isn't just about winning. It's really his chance to get better at controlling the cloak's shadows, using the battle as an excuse to practice. He thinks the real worth of this artifact depends on whether he can use the shadows to make some seriously strong weapons. He knows this training is something he has to do, so he goes for it and sends a shadow blade barrage right at Helmet. Takes the hit head on. Dale can't believe what he's seeing, just broke those blades apart using nothing but his own strength. He couldn't believe how strong this power was, and he hadn't even used aura yet. It honestly caught him off guard. Let out a laugh, clearly impressed by how the young lord handled himself. He nodded, showing he was ready to step in and take his shot now. The vibe shifted as everyone watched, waiting to see what would do next. Dale steps back fast, getting ready to protect himself. Suddenly stops in his tracks when dark, spiky shadows shoot up from the ground, cutting him off. He didn't see that coming, and it throws him off for a second, making him rethink his next move. Couldn't help but notice how the cloak made sneaking up on people way easier. He thought it was pretty cool how it let someone pull off ambushes like this. Brings his sword down hard on Dale's shadowy defenses. The impact hits Dale with enough force to make him groan, showing just how much pressure he's under. Dale held his ground, blocking his attacks one after another. Each hit pushed Dale back a bit, but he kept up. Watched him, surprised that Dale could keep up with his strength. He couldn't figure out how the guy had blocked his hit. Usually his swings were so strong that regular swords would break from the force. Looks at the artifact in his hands and can tell right away that it's on another level compared to anything he's seen before. Fired up and full of energy signals for Dale to keep going for 10 more rounds. The two of them jump right back into it, pushing themselves as they keep trading blows, each round just as intense as the last. After training wrapped up that day, the regular knights hanging around started talking. None of them had ever made it past 2 rounds when facing Commander. They couldn't shake off the sense that something was off between them and Dale, like there was this invisible barrier that kept them apart. A few days later, when it was finally time to leave, Duchess couldn't hide how uneasy she was. She kept looking at Dale, clearly not wanting to let him go somewhere so risky. He lets her know that his dad and Sir are going to be there with him, hoping she won't be too nervous about it. His mom kept showing she was nervous about him getting injured. He looked at his mom, his face dead serious. He knew he had to step up and get stronger because one day the whole Duke's family would be counting on him. He watches his baby sister sleeping and thinks about how he needs to get stronger and learn more. He wants to be ready, so one day he can look out for her and his parents when they really need him. He looks at his mom, hoping she'll understand how much he wants to get stronger, not just for himself but so he can keep her safe. Listens to what he says and it really gets to her. She nods, deciding to go along with it. Before she leaves, she tells him goodbye and reminds him to look after himself. He lets her know he'll be back soon. Early that morning at the temporary base, Sir let the Duke know the troops were all set to move out. Dale didn't expect his dad to tell him to give the order to march. He paused, caught off guard, but his father just looked at him calm and confident. The old man pointed out the black cavalry. Everyone knew they were the best, the pride of their whole family. Dale realized his dad wanted him to step up, probably because one day those soldiers would be following his lead. The weight of that hit him, but there was also something pretty cool about it. The Duke steps forward and makes it clear that these guys standing here aren't just any knights, they're his own. Dale looks at them and it finally hits him. They don't belong to his father, they're here for him. This was Dale's first real fight since he started going by his new name. He believed things would turn out differently for him this time. He lets everyone know it's time to head out. He lifts his fist, signaling the troops and letting them know it's time to move. He calls them the proud blades of House Saxon, and the knights answer back, showing they're all in and ready to follow their young lord. The guys got their orders and moved to where they were supposed to be. Everyone knew there were 250 knights in the group. He's about to join the elite guard unit up in the White Mountains, the Winter Guards. The team goes over the plan, making sure everyone knows what to do. They're up against a huge group of orcs, about 1,000 of them, so the tension in the air is real. The orcs had managed to get across the upper part of the Saxon River. They were running from the freezing weather and hoping to find something to eat. Now it looked like they were about to move down toward the lower part of the river. The Duke's soldiers decided to make their move first. They planned to cross the lower stream ahead of the orcs and catch them off guard. There were around 250 guys needing to get across a deep river, and everyone knew it wasn't happening fast without some magic. That's when Teacher stepped up. She told everyone to give her some space, letting them know she was about to make an ice bridge. Dale felt grateful as he watched her step up to help out, even though everyone knew she was all about peace and staying out of fights. He respected that she put her beliefs aside just this once to back him up when things got rough. Steps forward and lifts her hands, and suddenly this huge ice bridge forms right over the river. The troops watch as the solid path stretches out in front of them, wide and sturdy enough for everyone to cross. She gives them the signal and the soldiers start moving, some looking a little surprised but also relieved. With the bridge in place, they waste no time and get ready to head over to the other side. The Duke nodded in appreciation and quietly hoped he'd come out on top. Dale waves goodbye to his teacher and climbs onto his horse, ready to head out on his own. She keeps an eye on him right away, a small smile on her face. In her head, she's thinking about how the student always ends up getting his teacher concerned about what he's up to. Not long after, over at the orcs' temporary camp, things started to shift. The archers stay hidden, waiting for the right moment. When they see their chance, they let loose a bunch of flaming arrows aiming straight for the camp. Exploding arrows started falling on the orcs, tearing through their lines and making everything wild. The orcs couldn't keep it together as things blew up all around them, and the whole scene turned into a mess. An orc yells out, his face twisted with rage, while fire burns all around him. Sir gave the signal, and the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Night Battalions got ready to move. The plan was clear. They'd push forward in a tight wedge, aiming to break through the enemy lines. The knights adjusted their grips on their weapons, armor clinking as they lined up, everyone focused on the order and what was coming next. Rode alongside Dale, glancing over to see what he thought. Dale watched the horses, paying close attention to how fast they were going. He figured they were running at about 40 kilometers an hour, keeping that detail in mind as they moved forward. He points out that the knight and his horse are really heavy, so when they start moving, they pick up speed fast. He finishes thinking it through and realizes that when knights use their lances, those things are 3 or 4 meters long and back them up with their own power. Not even orcs can hold them back. The knights cut through the orcs without much trouble. Dale watches, noticing how the fight isn't really a challenge for them. The Duke stands by, pretty sure of his men, and it's clear to everyone that the knights from the duchy are on another level. Let the young lord know he shouldn't get comfortable yet. He made it clear things were only starting, and there was a lot more to come. The fight between the knights and the orcs kept going, with neither side backing down. Swords clashed against heavy axes, and the sound of armor and weapons echoed through the field. Both sides pushed hard, determined not to let the other win. The air was tense, and everyone knew this wasn't ending anytime soon. Let everyone know that the ambush worked, but it didn't wipe out the enemy. Now, the group needed to pull back, get themselves together, and hit the enemy again with a series of attacks until they finished the job. The order to pull back comes in, and the guys start moving out, heading away from the front lines. The knights pulled back, leaving the orcs just standing there, not really sure what was happening. 2 orcs started yelling, their voices echoing across the field. One of them aimed and hurled a spear straight at a knight who was falling behind the others. The knight takes a hit to his arm, and his horse gets stuck by a spear in the neck. With the horse stumbling, the knight loses his balance and ends up crashing down onto the ground. Dale comes to a halt and glances over at the knight, just stands there not showing much emotion and points out how unlucky they've been with this whole retreat. The Duke figured the knight was done for, thinking his army had already lost someone. Dale couldn't help but wonder if that really meant the knight was gone for good. The Duke points out that one of House Saxon's best swords is now out in the open where the enemy can see it. Dale spins around fast, confused about why everyone else is just standing there watching. He spots an orc charging straight for the injured knight. Looking at the hill, he knows that riding his horse down there would just take too long. He shuts his eyes, focusing hard. From where he stands, he knows he has to break through the orc's tough skin. Orcs are way harder to deal with than most monsters, so he figures his usual spell isn't going to cut it. He starts working out a new approach, tweaking his magic in his head. He keeps his focus, knowing the orc's tough skin won't be easy to get through from where he's standing. He starts thinking about changing up his spell, trying to figure out how to make it hit harder and fly, kind of like turning it into a sniper shot. He wants it to be sharp enough to break through and accurate enough to hit the orc just right. He figures it would be smart to add a sniper rifle formula along with the bullet formula, hoping that'll make everything work better together. He stretches out his hand and fires off his new spell. It's an ice bolt, but he's tweaked it to hit like a sniper shot. The ice spell shot out right away, hitting the orc that was going after the injured knight. The ice went straight through the orc's head, stopping it in its tracks. The orc drops to the ground, not moving anymore. Watches from where he's standing and notices that the shot landed right where it was supposed to, even though it was from pretty far away. Dale jumps on his horse and heads straight down the hill without a second thought. Sir notices and watches him go, caught off guard and trying to figure out what Dale's up to. Duke Jackson suddenly steps in and tells to back off. Didn't see that coming and just stands there, caught off guard. The Duke looked impressed as he watched Dale. He couldn't help but think about how Dale, even though he was still so young, had already come up with a formula that was this powerful. The Duke's smile showed that he saw real potential in Dale's skills. It looks like Dale might have already figured himself out on the inside. Dale gets to the hurt knight just as he notices the other orcs gathering together again. He notices right away that he's got two things to deal with. The first is the knight on the ground in front of him, looking completely freaked out and struggling to even stand up. The next thing he notices is that his special formula takes way too long to use, so it's not really helpful in a fight. He starts thinking about how he needs to make it shorter, kind of like how people simplify math formulas to make them easier and faster to work with. He comes up with a short name for himself, something cool like Ice 98 Magnum. He thinks the name is still way too long, so he just goes with Ice Bullet instead. Right then, another orc charges straight at the knight, who's clearly freaking out. Dale doesn't waste time, he uses his new spell, Ice Bullet. The Ice Bullet goes right through the orc's head. The orc drops to the ground just behind the knight. The knight's eyes go wide when he sees Dale, clearly scared and confused about why the young lord has shown up for him. Dale stands in front of the fallen knight. He looks calm, trying to reassure the guy lying on the ground. Even though things look rough, Dale's steady presence seems to make it a little less scary for everyone watching. He smiled, letting the knight know that House Saxon always stands by anyone who proves loyal. The knight felt something heavy lift off his chest. He hadn't expected that kind of trust, and it hit him in a way that stuck. The other orc started yelling and moving closer. Dale got ready, focusing on his magic, knowing things were about to get serious. He pulls on his cloak of shadow, and suddenly shadowy blades shoot out, slicing toward the orcs. He grinned, sending his shadows to swallow up the enemies. One of the orcs glanced up, frozen by fear. The shadows dropped down on the orcs, ripping through them fast. The shadows moved in fast, tearing through the orcs and breaking them down until only their bones were left scattered on the ground. He looks over at the last orc left standing and smiles, almost like he's wondering why this one hasn't taken off yet. Without waiting for an answer, he gets ready and fires off his ice bullet spell. Once the last orc hit the ground, he glanced around, thinking things were finally under control. Not far off, the knight tried to get his attention, looking pale and stuck in place. Turns out, the knight was so scared his legs just wouldn't work, no matter how hard he tried. Sir showed up with the other knights just in time, spotting Dale as he helped the injured knight. Dale looked over at, clearly relieved to see backup had made it. With the others there, he knew he could finally step back and let handle things from here. Gave the signal, getting every knight battalion ready to move at once. He was all in, focused on leading the charge for House Saxon. The guys around him could tell this was it, the big moment they'd been waiting for. Everyone braced themselves, ready to hit the enemy together, side by side. The knights rush forward, their spirits lifting as they fight for young Lord Dale. Not long after, back at the Saxon base, Dale's father gave him a nod of approval. The orc mission was done and Dale had pulled it off. When the battle wrapped up, the Duke called his son Dale over. He wanted to talk about something on his mind, something to do with how the recent fight had gone. Dale could tell his dad had a serious question ready, and the mood shifted as he waited to hear what it was all about. The Duke looked at his son, his eyes sharp and serious. He wanted to know why his son had rushed off by himself straight into enemy territory. The question hung in the air, heavy and demanding an honest answer. Dale swallows hard, confused and a little nervous as he tries to figure out what he did wrong. The Duke really wants to find out why. Dale brings up what he said before, pointing out to his dad that the Knights of House Saxon are the group he's supposed to lead someday. With that in mind, he explains that he just did what was expected of him, stepping up and handling a mission like someone in his spot would. The Duke isn't buying it and just brushes it off. Dale can't believe it. His dad's always been the type to look out for his knights, so seeing him act like this now really throws Dale off. He just can't figure out why his father's suddenly so cold. Dale couldn't just stay quiet anymore. He looked at his dad, the Duke, and wanted answers. He needed to know why his father just stood there and let one of their knights die. The Duke tells everyone how rough things are up north, where House Saxon's land runs right up against the Demon King's territory. Monsters attack all the time, and the knights fighting there know they can't count on anyone to come help them. They're on their own, always ready for the next battle. Dale didn't back down. Even though the situation was tense, he still wanted to help the knight who had always stuck by his dad's side. The Duke looked at him for a second, then hit him with a question that made Dale pause. He asked if Dale Dale had acted the same way once, leaving Dale thinking about his own choices in the past. The Duke kept going with his lesson, letting the guys know that knights can't just wait around for orders. Out on the battlefield, they have to make quick decisions on their own if they want to make it back alive. By stepping in, Dale gave them the idea that there would always be someone around to bail them out. The Duke looks at his knights, thinking about how many of them could actually handle things on their own. He notices how much they rely on others and can't help but question if any of them would really make it if left to their own devices. The Duke explains what he's supposed to do. He only steps in when the knights run into something too tough for them to deal with on their own. That's just how things work for the Saxons. It's a responsibility they can't ignore. Dale just stands there not saying anything. It hits him that he's completely blanked on something important, something he used to always stick to back when he was hand. Even with all that going on, Dale just stood there, not backing down at all. The Duke smiled, resting his hand on his son's shoulder. He was honestly impressed by how his son didn't just talk about what he believed in, he actually did something about it. That really stood out to him. The Duke wanted his son to remember this moment and hold on to that drive, hoping he'd never lose it. He points back toward the castle, making it clear the other guys should head back. Word got around fast about the Duke's son running straight into a crowd of orcs just to help one night. People everywhere in the Empire started talking about it, and soon it was all over the place. Everyone had something to say about the crazy move the young guy pulled off. People love to talk, and the stories about the young master just keep getting bigger. Some guys even say he took down 1,000 orcs all by himself, but everyone knows that's way over the top. Word of the story, mostly true with just a little stretch to it, starts making its way across the Empire fast. Everywhere you go, people are talking about it, passing it on like it's the latest trend. Dale thought the whole thing was pretty embarrassing, but after it happened, things started to shift around the duchy. People noticed the difference, and it was clear that something new was happening. A few days later, Dale showed up at the Duchy's night training ground. The place was buzzing with energy and the knights were already there waiting for him. As soon as Dale walked in, every knight dropped to one knee, showing him serious respect. It was clear he had earned their trust and they saw him as someone important. He gets pretty embarrassed and hopes they'll stop doing that. Thor lets him know he should keep his head up and not slouch. Stood in front of the knights, letting everyone know they had to step up their game if they wanted to protect their young master down the road. The knights got fired up, showing they were ready to follow his lead. Dale noticed how pumped up everyone seemed. While he was taking it all in, a maid called Eve walked over to him. Eve lets him know the guests from house are about to show up. He gives her a quick nod, then heads over to say hi to the others. He starts wondering about the special guests coming over. The guests turned out to be from the family, a well-known warrior clan in. Everyone recognized them because their leader was famous across the kingdom for his skills with a sword. The story goes on about the warrior house. Back when the Empire started its big unification war, the kingdom of didn't make it. After known as the Sword God died, the family couldn't hold it together anymore and ended up falling apart. Back at the castle, Dale spots Sir looking distracted, almost like he's somewhere else in his head. Dale can tell's probably thinking about the Sword God, the guy who inspired him to become a knight in the first place. Couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling this whole thing gave him. Meanwhile, the Duke saw that Dale showed up right when he was supposed to, looking like he'd just come from a tough training session. Dale nodded, showing he'd been putting in the work. Just then, a servant showed up to let everyone know the guest had arrived. The Duke didn't waste any time. He made it clear that the guest should be treated with the highest respect. Two ladies walked in, Vanessa and her daughter Charlotte. They both gave a polite bow. The Duke seemed impressed that they showed up on their own without anyone there to escort them. Vanessa steps forward and introduces herself to the Duke of Saxon, keeping it respectful and low-key. The Duke nods and welcomes her, making sure things stay polite between them. Vanessa brings her daughter Charlotte into the room. Charlotte doesn't look happy and seems pretty annoyed with her mom. Dale couldn't help but notice how weird her reaction was. He kept thinking about it, trying to figure out what was really going on with her. Out of nowhere, Charlotte raised her voice at her mom, upset about her bowing to those people. Vanessa got flustered and called out to her daughter, not really sure how to handle the situation. While Vanessa tries to quiet her daughter, the Duke steps in calmly. He understands they've probably had a long, exhausting trip and doesn't make a big deal out of the moment. The Duke wanted Dale to help Lady Charlotte get familiar with the castle, so Dale agreed to go with her and show her around. He holds out his hand, letting Charlotte know which way to go. She smacks his hand away hard and tells him off, making it clear she doesn't want him anywhere near her. Dale freezes, not sure what to think. The Duke and Duchess stand nearby, the baby in their arms, both of them caught off guard by what just happened. Charlotte rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed by the way the imperial nobles acted. Meanwhile, Vanessa got mad and yelled at her daughter, telling her she needed to say sorry to the young lord right away. Charlotte doesn't even look back. She storms out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Dale tries to get her attention, calling out and hoping she'll stop, but she just keeps going. When Charlotte storms out and slams the door, Vanessa looks embarrassed and keeps saying sorry for how her daughter acted. She tries to explain that Charlotte doesn't usually behave like that, but something happened not long ago that's got her all worked up. Duchess looked at her, trying to figure out what was going on. She could tell something was off and wanted to know what had happened. Vanessa lets everyone know that just recently Count Brandenburg, who's known as a holy knight, was put in charge of checking over their lands as an inspector. Everyone knew Count Brandenburg not just because of his title, the Pig King, but also because he was a legendary holy. People talked about him all the time, some for his skills, others for his unusual nickname. Either way, his reputation reached pretty much everyone. He's completely focused on finding an heir who's better than anyone else, always watching for anyone who's really skilled with a sword. Whenever he spots someone talented, he goes after them, never caring about what they want. She mentions that he acts this way even when the girl is still really young. She explains that they only just got away in time before anything worse could happen to her daughter. Even so, those memories stuck with them, impossible to forget. Charlotte's mom would do whatever it takes to keep her daughter safe, but since she lost her old status, she doesn't really have the influence she used to. She turns to the Duke, hoping he'll let Charlotte work as a maid for House Saxon. It's the only way she can think of to make sure that Guy Brandenburg stays far away from her daughter. While all this is going on, Dale spots Charlotte out on the training ground. He starts to wonder why she even showed up, thinking maybe she's got some of that night blood in her too. He looks at her and realizes she doesn't really know where she's headed, and she admits it. She checked to see if his hand was alright after she slapped it. He just shrugged it off and let her know he was okay, telling her it wasn't a big deal. Charlotte lets out a quiet breath, looking a little calmer now. Dale glances over and spots the faint traces of tears on her cheeks. He figures she's still caught up in everything that went down. Even though Charlotte usually acts tough, Dale can't help but see that underneath it all she's still just a kid. Out of nowhere, Charlotte spun around and pulled out her sword. She made it clear that if things were going to go this way, he'd have to fight her. She tells Dale of Saxon to pull out his sword. Dale didn't see that coming. Charlotte just did her own thing, and he could tell she wasn't the type to follow the rules. He watched her kind of thrown off by how bold she was. Charlotte wasn't messing around, she wanted Dale to fight her. Dale didn't really get what was going on, so he just wondered what her deal was. She told him it was because she'd heard all sorts of rumors about him. Charlotte had heard that Dale was some kind of legend who took down 1,000 orcs and rescued a knight all by himself. Dale knew the real story wasn't that wild, and honestly he felt a little awkward hearing people talk about him like that. The rumors made him cringe inside, knowing things got blown out of proportion. She pushes forward, determined to take down the guy everyone says can't be beaten in the Empire. If she wins, everyone will see that she's the strongest. She's determined to show she can keep her family safe from that guy. Dale can't help but think about who she's talking about. Charlotte introduced the guy as Count Brandenburg, though Dale couldn't believe what he just heard. He tries to keep his cool, but inside he's pretty annoyed, thinking back to how this guy from the Empire betrayed him before. Hearing his own name come up right now catches him off guard. He figured they were both after the same thing, so teaming up with her could work out. Still, before anything else, he wanted to show her how things really work. Charlotte stands there not sure what's going on while Dale heads off to grab a weapon. To him, she's just a kid who doesn't really get what's happening. He tells Charlotte to go all out and throw everything she's got at him. Charlotte gets fired up, determined to show him she's not holding back. Charlotte rushed forward, her rapier shining with a green light. She went for Dale, but he was ready and stopped her move with his sword. The fight keeps going, with both guys trading fast hits. Neither of them is slowing down, each one trying to land the next blow before the other. Dale barely breaks a sweat as he blocks every move she throws at him, staying cool and in control the whole time. He pays close attention to how she fights. Every time he blocks one of her attacks, she snaps her wrist and comes right back at him with another move. He also realizes she barely uses any of her aura during their match. He figures she must be using some kind of aura to handle the rapier, since it's way too big for her. He guesses it's kind of like how mages use circles to bring out their mana. Knights push themselves further by building up energy inside their bodies. He blocks another hit, thinking about how her skills really show where she comes from. Her family's reputation isn't just talk, it's real, and it's showing up with every move she makes. The fight rages on and Charlotte doesn't let up. She keeps pressing forward, throwing attack after attack. Charlotte gives a confident smile. She's pretty sure that if this is all he's got, she's got things under control. Charlotte thinks back to her childhood. Her dad passed away before she even got to meet him, so growing up, her mom would tell her stories about him every night. Her mom explained that now it was up to her to look after the family. As the sword god's daughter, she had to step up and be strong for everyone. She remembers her sword always in her hand, always moving. Even after their home was destroyed and her family was torn apart, she can't help but get mad wondering why she kept fighting. She kept running into Dale, always getting stopped by him somehow. It was starting to get annoying and she couldn't figure out what his problem was. Every time she tried to go somewhere, there he was, like he was doing it on purpose. Charlotte senses that something isn't right. She goes for another attack, but Dale blocks her sword with a clean move that catches her off guard. He reacts fast, knocking the weapon right out of her grip before she even realizes what's happening. Charlotte's sword slipped from her hand and hit the ground with a dull sound. She dropped to her knees, confused and frustrated. It didn't make sense to her. She was the sword god's daughter, but she still couldn't come out on top. The defeat stung and she just sat there trying to figure out where she went wrong. He walks up to her, she's got tears in her eyes, and he explains that it's because she's not the sword god. He lets her know it's okay to be proud of being the sword god's daughter. He looks at her seriously and points out that right now she isn't strong enough to keep her family safe from that guy. He tells her straight up that the Brandenburg is way more powerful than he is right now by a long shot. When Charlotte hears this, tears start rolling down her face as the truth hits her hard. Charlotte just stood there looking completely lost. She had no idea what to do next. Everything felt like it was falling apart around her. Dale stepped up in front of her. He looked serious, like he was ready to handle whatever came next, and made it clear that he was Dale of Saxon. He was ready to put the ducal family name on the line and step up as the guardian for the family. When Charlotte heard about it, she froze, completely caught off guard. This wasn't what she expected at all. He kept talking, letting her know that until she was strong enough to take down Brandenburg, he and his family would have her back and keep her safe. Charlotte wondered why he was doing all this. He just pointed out that her sword skills were the real deal, and that made everything worth it to him. He looks at her with a serious expression, wanting her to promise that she'll stand by him and his family, ready to protect them like a sword. Charlotte gives a small smile, looking like she really means it. She kneels down in front of him, serious and respectful, and makes her promise as a knight, giving her word and using her full name, Charlotte. Even though it looked like two kids just making a promise, there was something serious about it. The way they meant it, you could tell this was more than just talk. It was the kind of promise you don't break. Later that day, Dale walked into his dad's office to let him know about something new. He explained that Miss Charlotte was now working as a lady-in-waiting for their family. This happened because Vanessa asked Lady about it, and now Charlotte had officially joined them as part of the household staff. The Duke noticed how quickly Charlotte agreed, which caught him off guard. He started to wonder what had gone down between them. Dale remembered the promise he made. He told them that House Saxon would look out for the family no matter what. That commitment meant a lot to him, and he wasn't about to back down now. The Duke wanted to know if his son only used their family name because he felt bad for her situation. Dale shook his head, making it clear that wasn't the reason. The Duke wanted to know what Dale was after. Dale told him that Charlotte was the only one left left from the Sword God's family, and that just as people thought she was insanely talented. He lets everyone know that Miss Charlotte promised to stay loyal to him. He's after just one thing, a Sword God that'll help House Saxon get ahead. The Duke watched Dale, clearly impressed by what he was up to. Dale couldn't help but grin to himself, thinking that having the only descendant of the Sword God on his side was a solid way to strike back at Brandenburg. Now the story moves over to which used to be the main city of. Count Brandenburg is there, totally losing his cool. He's so mad that he starts wrecking his own furniture, making a mess of the place. He gets mad thinking about how they even have the guts to start something, while one of his guys stands there apologizing. He gets frustrated with the guys, annoyed that they messed up something so simple. He can't believe they let one kid slip away and starts questioning how they managed to mess it up. The subordinate told his boss they'd already sent assassins, but those guys never even made it to Saxon territory. They got taken out along the way. Everyone figured Charlotte was the one behind it. Brandenburg looked at them, clearly annoyed, and turned his back. He headed over to where his holy sword rested, ignoring everyone else. He thinks back to how things used to be. He looks down at his holy sword, focusing on it for a moment. He looks at the sword like it's the most important thing in his life, almost like it's his future partner. He promises himself that he'll find someone worthy to carry on his legacy and wield this blade, no matter what it takes. He decides to call in the Thieves' Guild and send someone off to the Duchy of Saxon to take care of things. He says he's willing to spend anything, even 1,000 gold coins, just to have that young horse Charlotte brought to him. A week slid by after Charlotte pledged her loyalty. She started to get used to life in the Duke's castle, which felt totally different from her old home back in. Every day she got thrown into tough training, learning what it takes to be a proper lady-in-waiting. Every day sparring with Dale worked its way into her schedule. Sir watched over their training sessions, checking if they were up for another round. Dale gives a quick nod, showing he's set to go. Charlotte also signals she's good, both of them prepared for what's coming next. Helmet grinned as he signaled for the duel to kick off. Right away, both sides charged at each other, weapons out, ready for whatever was coming. The training duel keeps going, both guys trading quick hits back and forth. Neither wants to back down, so their moves get faster and sharper as they try to outdo each other. The duel between Dale and Charlotte kept going. Sir stood off to the side, quietly watching them, his eyes following every move. Looks at the fight and questions if it's really just kids going at it. He can tell they're not on the same level as real knights yet, but there's still a lot of energy in the air. He could tell right away that they were after him, and they moved so fast it put him on edge. It was clear these guys meant business, and he knew he had to stay sharp. The duel heats up as Dale grabs his cloak and swings it, trying to throw Charlotte off her game. Charlotte's nerves are on edge, but she pushes through and focuses, lining up a careful attack straight at Dale. Steps in right before things get out of hand. He blocks Charlotte just as she's about to go for it, and he catches Dale before Dale can strike back. Seems pretty impressed with how they both handled themselves. He gives Charlotte a nod, letting her know she did a good job. She brushes off his compliments like they don't matter and looks straight at him, wanting to know what she's missing. Pierce wanted to know if she understood what using a rapier was really about. She gave him an answer, not hesitating as he waited for her response. He shakes his head and tries to clear things up, pointing out that what really matters is the legs. It's all about footwork. He points out how Dale got in close while dodging her attack. That was the moment she should pull back to get some space and wait for a better shot. He mentions that when using a rapier, bending and stretching your arm to hit harder actually makes the blade wobble more, which just makes it tougher to stab exactly where you want. You tell that Charlotte needed to work on her basics again. When she heard this, she got pretty upset. It picked up on something about Charlotte. Her stance and the way she moved were kind of all over the place. It was obvious she hadn't had anyone show her the ropes before. Charlotte just shrugged it off, used to figuring things out on her own without any real teacher. Grin looking at Charlotte, he pointed out that as long as he was around, he'd have to sort out the way she stood when she tried to pierce. Charlotte didn't like the way he called her stance weird. She started to get annoyed, her expression showing she wasn't happy about his comment. Couldn't help but laugh, clearly enjoying messing with her just because she's adorable. Dale watched the two of them, realizing Charlotte would probably level up fast with someone like the guy's one of the legendary 7 swords after all. It hits Dale that if he doesn't step up his own game, Charlotte might end up passing him soon, and he's not about to let that happen. Later, Dale looks back on his magic training. He remembers how building a mana circle always starts the same way, sensing mana moving near his heart, holding on until a steady path opens up, and then focusing hard to form the shape of the magic ring in his mind. The thing is, this whole process usually drags on for years, sometimes even decades. So when Dale tells his teacher that he's already finished the second circle, she doesn't see it coming. She's caught off guard by how fast he's moving, since hardly anyone gets through it that quickly. In his head, he goes over how people here measure how fast mana moves. It's all about RPM, or revolutions per minute. For most beginner mages, that number usually sits at 300 RPM. He lets everyone know his current speed. He's hitting 2000 RPM on the first circle and around 400 RPM on the second. Since you only need at least 300 RPM to make the circle bigger, it's clear he's already got what it takes to form the third circle. He figures that now that he's made it to the second circle, it's a good time to test something out. He wants to make his ice bullet spell better, so he figures if he can make the ice stick together more, the bullet will end up heavier and tougher. He plans to use a bigger barrel so the bullet spins faster and hits harder. He fires off the upgraded spell armor-piercing ice bullet. He checks out the result, surprised by how simple it was to shoot an armor-piercing bullet. It hits him that just drawing one extra circle changed everything. Dale's teacher notices how quickly he's picking things up. She nods, clearly impressed. Dale doesn't let it get to his head, he just smiles and gestures toward her, making it clear she's the reason he's doing well. Remembers everything that's happened lately, from the time he saved the knight from those orcs, to everything that went down with Lady Charlotte. Watching him, she realizes that even though he's still just a kid, he actually knows what he's doing when it comes to using his power. She thinks about how this kid's skills are honestly kind of scary. scary, but he keeps showing her that she can count on him. Deep down, she knows she's got a student she can really be proud of. Suddenly hugs Dale. He doesn't really know what to do. The whole thing feels way too sudden, and he's left standing there, not sure how to react. The hug catches him off guard, and the whole situation just feels kind of awkward for him. Early that morning, Dale stood in the castle courtyard, his mind still stuck on everything that had happened. He wonders for a second if she only thinks of him as a kid, but he pushes that thought aside. Right now, he knows there are more important things to focus on. Early one morning, Dale heads out to the castle courtyard. The place is quiet and the air feels cool. He wants to get better at his skills, so he starts off by making an ice wall, concentrating on getting it just right. He decides it's time to try out a new spell he came up with. He calls it Ice Bullet 12-gauge buckshot. He lines up his aim, focusing hard, and lets it rip, curious to see how it'll turn out. The ice wall breaks apart. Suddenly, ice pellets start bouncing all over the place. He quickly puts up a magic shield, stopping the pellets from hitting him as they fly in every direction. He grinned at how well the experiment worked, already planning to test out slug rounds in the future. But just as he was getting caught up in his thoughts, someone called out to him, snapping him back to the moment. Charlotte showed up, ready to train too. Dale wondered if Charlotte was training as well. She nodded, letting him know she'd been practicing the moves Sir showed her earlier. Dale could tell Charlotte was actually having a good time picking up sword skills, even if she tried to play it cool. She looked a little awkward when he noticed, her cheeks turning slightly red as she tried to hide how much she liked it. Charlotte turned to Dale, looking a bit embarrassed. She remembered how she acted the first time they met and realized she hadn't been fair to him. She felt bad about it now and wanted to make things right, so she let him know that she was sorry for being rude before. He thinks about how she went a little overboard, but he can't help but smile. Even though her move was pretty bold, he decides to let it slide this time and just move on. He tells her she doesn't need to act so serious around him. Charlotte's face lights up and she nods, looking way more at ease. Charlotte mentioned to Dale that she actually enjoys the cold weather around here. Even when she stays out training late, the chilly air helps her cool off fast. He grins to himself, honestly glad he's finally found someone who gets it. Up in the castle, the Duke stood next to Duchess, both of them watching everything happening below through the window. The Duchess noticed how much their son had changed and how different he seemed now. The Duke turned to her curious, wanting to know if she thought their son and his companion matched well together. The Duchess keeps it simple and says they'll find out eventually. The Duchess looked at her son and realized he needed a little push to be honest about what he really wanted. She decided she'd do whatever she could to help him figure things out, hoping he wouldn't hold back or pretend anymore. Later that day, out on the edge of the duchy, Duchess spent her time checking on the relief work going on in the slums. She kept an eye on how things were going, making sure the people there were getting the help they needed. He thinks about how his mom goes out every week, handing out food and supplies to people who need it. He lets her know that both he and Charlotte started coming this year. As they walk, Charlotte notices a little kid who seems upset and steps in to help. The kid looks desperate, his eyes wide as he tries to get someone's attention. He keeps pointing back, clearly scared, trying to let people know that something's wrong with his mom. You can tell he's hoping someone will step in and help her out. The kid reaches out and holds onto Charlotte's arm, looking desperate for her help. Dale and Charlotte trail behind the kid, and Dale couldn't shake off the sense that something just wasn't right. He sees them leaving the busy streets behind and turning into a narrow alley. It hits him that something's off. Why would the kid go straight to Charlotte for help instead of asking any of the adults around? The whole thing just doesn't add up. Dale noticed someone on the rooftop keeping an eye on things. He recognized the kid right away. They were from the Thieves' Guild. Dale figured Charlotte was who they were after, but he couldn't help but think the setup looked way too easy. Something about it didn't add up. The kid comes to a halt, says he's heading off to find his mom, then takes off running. Right then, masked guys closed in around Dale and Charlotte. One of them seemed amused, clearly not expecting to see nobles wandering somewhere this risky. One of the men steps forward, making it clear they're there for Charlotte, the young maid. He tells Dale, the young lord, not to get involved. Dale stands back, unsure what to do as the men focus their attention on Charlotte. The other guy grins and flashes a dagger, letting him know he's not messing around, and things could get dangerous if anyone tries anything stupid. Dale steps up in front of the thieves, letting them know exactly who he is. Dale Saxon. He makes it clear that he's there to defend what matters to him, not backing down for a second. She was the youngest daughter from the family, known by most guys as one of the toughest girls around. The leader of the thieves, the one with green hair, looked at the young noble's brave act and just brushed it off, acting like he wasn't impressed at all. He thinks Dale should have thought more about when and where to bring stuff up. He notices that Dale still has a lot to learn about how tough the world can be. Charlotte leaned in closer to Dale, her eyes darting around as she let him know she'd forgotten her sword. Dale noticed how tense she was and gave her a quick nod, trying to calm her down without making a big deal out of it. He figured this was the best time to try out his cloak of shadow skill without raising any suspicion, since he could just say it was for self-defense. The thieves wasted no time and came at Dale and Charlotte from every side, wanting to finish the job fast. One of the thieves suddenly felt a weird breeze, just as Dale's shadows started creeping in around them. The leader glared at his crew, clearly annoyed, and waved them aside so he could get through. Dale notices how sharp the leader is and figures he must be one of the top thieves. Without waiting any longer, Dale goes in for the attack. He pulls out a new move he picked up after hitting the second circle. He slips a shadowy creature into one of the thieves, turning it into a sort of parasite that takes hold from the inside. The thief suddenly doubles over, grabbing his sides as the shadow creature slips right into him. His face twists up in agony and he can't hold back a yell. The pain hits hard and everyone around can see it's not something he can shake off. The leader stares at Dale, his mind racing with fear about whatever strange thing Dale is working on. The thief who'd been infected earlier suddenly started changing right in front of everyone. His body twisted and got all messed up, turning into this creepy undead soldier. He let out a loud, hungry yell that echoed through the place, making everyone freeze for a second. The leader, seeing his guys freaking out, quickly tells them to take down whatever that thing is. He pauses, realizing just how much trouble they're in. One wrong move here and things could get really bad, maybe even deadly. He charges forward, throwing himself right into the fight. In this alley, he's got so much confidence that he honestly believes even two oracles wouldn't be able to stand against him. He trusts his sharp teeth and those glowing daggers of his more than anything. Dale blocks the attack without breaking a sweat, his shadows moving fast to protect him. He's already getting ready to strike back. The thief leader looks annoyed, clearly not happy about how things are turning out. Dale tries out a new spell that hits hard, almost like firing off a double-barreled 12-gauge shotgun. He raised his hand and let loose several magic blasts, each one slamming straight into the leader. The leader gets knocked back hard from the hit, landing a few feet away. Charlotte stands there, frozen, her eyes wide as she takes in what just happened. Dale stands alone in the alley, watching as the undead shadow soldier goes after another thief. He notices the leader takes the hit but doesn't go down, and figures it must be thanks to that weird aura covering his body. The leader, hurt but still stubborn, pushes himself back to his feet. He's clearly not ready to give up. Ignoring the pain, he rushes forward, letting out a loud shout as he makes one last desperate charge. Dale lets his shadows loose, and before the leader can even react, they slice right through him. The undead soldier lunges at another thief, ripping him apart. Its hunger is obvious as it goes after its next victim, showing no signs of stopping. Once the fight was over, Dale walked over to Charlotte. She was sitting on the ground, looking a bit tired but alright. Dale checked to see if she got hurt, but she let him know she was okay. Dale reaches out and grabs Charlotte's hand. One of the injured thieves lets out a low groan from where he's lying on the ground. The thief makes a run for it, but Dale reacts fast. He aims and fires, hitting the thief's foot with an ice bullet. The guy stumbles, his escape plan totally ruined. The last thief looks desperate, glancing at Dale like he hopes for a lifeline. But Dale just calls the shadow creature back, keeping his cool and not giving the guy any chance to escape. The thief, realizing he's in serious trouble, tries to bargain for his safety. He promises to spill everything he knows if he's allowed to walk away alive. Dale wants to know if the guy really means everything he just said. The thief nods right away, looking stressed, like he's hoping Dale will believe him. Dale started getting a spell ready, his face serious. He didn't look interested at all, just focused on what he had to do next. He lets out a burst of magic, taking down the last thief. Charlotte just stands there, frozen, trying to process what just happened. He lets her know that this side of the Duchy of Saxon is what makes people uneasy. At the same time, it's this strength that'll keep her safe. He wondered if she was scared after what just happened. She nodded and looked down, admitting she was a bit nervous. He could tell she understood why he did it. Even though things were tense, she wasn't upset. She knew he was just looking out for her. She goes over the promise she made before. If his family steps up to protect hers, she's going to pay him back someday. When the time comes, she'll be there for him, ready to fight on his side. She felt really grateful to him for opening her eyes to what could be possible. Deep down, she made up her mind to get tougher and step up her game. He watches her and realizes that part of the reason he accepted Charlotte was because he felt guilty. He heads over to the fight, recognizing her as someone he defeated in his previous life. So she stepped up and offered to be his sword. He had no idea how important it really was. At the same time, over at Count Brandenburg's castle, things were unfolding. The Count sat at his desk, scowling as he read through a letter. It turned out to be an invitation to Saxon Castle, and just by the look on his face, it was clear he wasn't happy about it. It was basically a call from the Black Duke, the Duke of Saxon, demanding that he answer for the attempted kidnapping that happened. Brandenburg understood that even though he was the Empire's holy sword, he really couldn't do anything but go along with what was happening. A couple days passed and Count Brandenburg showed up at Saxon Castle. The Duke was already there, sitting on his throne with Dale by his side. When the Count walked in, the Duke greeted him and mentioned how tough the trip must have been. He's surprised by how fast the guy showed up. He says sorry for not making the welcome better. Brandenburg rolls his eyes, definitely not thrilled, but he knows that when the Duke calls, you drop everything. No matter what else is going on, this is the one thing you can't ignore. He gets annoyed and thinks about how Dale and Charlotte always seem to have some sneaky plan up their sleeves. The Duke brings up how everyone in the Empire is seriously worried after someone tried to pull off a kidnapping in broad daylight right on his territory. He thinks he knows the reason they called him in. He couldn't believe he was caught up in something so embarrassing, especially after everything he'd done for the Emperor. It didn't make sense to him, and he felt kind of annoyed just thinking about it. While the Duke talked, a heavy dark energy started to pour out from him. It slowly filled the hall, making the air feel tense and uneasy. Brandenburg jumps a little, caught off guard. Out of nowhere, a weird wind picks up and shadows start to close in around the group. One of the guys with him notices right away and looks confused, trying to figure out what's going on with the sudden wind and the shadows moving in. Everyone feels tense, not sure what's about to happen. Count Brandenburg's knights freeze up when they notice the shadows creeping closer, slowly swallowing them up. Fear hits them hard as the darkness edges in, and some of them look like they're about to bolt. The whole squad can't help but tense up, knowing something's not right as the shadows keep closing in around them. The knights called out to the Count, desperate for help, while Brandenburg stood there stunned. He just watched as his Holy Magdalena Knight order went down fast, not even putting up a fight. He spots the dark magic right away. It's strong, something he's seen before. His chest gets tight and he can't help but tense up, remembering what happened last time he ran into power like this. Duke Saxon stands there, focused and calm, as he starts casting Tempest, a powerful dark spell that everyone knows is tough to handle. The Duke turned to Count Brandenburg, the guy known as the Sword of Sanctity. He told him to get down on one knee and not move. Brandenburg gets fired up, clearly not happy with what's going on. He turns to the Duke, wanting to know what the deal is. The Duke doesn't even seem bothered and just responds calmly, like he's not taking Brandenburg seriously at all. He lets him know this is his last warning. Brandenburg drops to his knees, totally outmatched by the Duke's magic. He's frustrated, wishing things hadn't gone this bad. Sure, he knew the Black Duke had reasons for his actions, but he never thought he'd end up kneeling like this. Meanwhile, the Duke just sits on his throne, looking calm and powerful, making it clear that he called Brandenburg here for peace. Right then, he lays it all out. If the Count messes with the Saxon kids again, every single person in the Brandenburg family is going to pay for it. It's clear he isn't joking around. He really hoped the Count would actually listen to the warning this time. He suddenly switched up his attitude and, kind of mocking, told the tired Count to come over and warm up. Brandenburg, clearly annoyed, lets everyone know he's thankful for what the Duke has done for him. He lets them know he can't hang around any longer because of what's going on. The Duke nods and waves him off, hoping he gets home without any trouble. Dale stood there watching everything unfold. He knew Brandenburg was really close to the Emperor, probably one of his biggest supporters. Seeing what his dad just did to someone like that, Dale couldn't help but think about what it might mean, especially with Brandenburg being so tied to the Emperor's side. This is the moment that sets everything off, the spark that's about to turn the whole empire upside down. Dale knows it's just a small spark right now, but he can already tell it's going to grow fast. It won't be long before things really heat up. He figures they're the one who's going to put an end to the power behind the Sword of Sanctity. When everyone started talking about how the Sword of Sanctity had bowed down to the Black Duke, the Duke was already sitting in his office. The Duke stood next to Teacher. Both of them looked serious, like something important was about to happen. Stares at the bodies frozen in place. She doesn't know what to do with what she's seeing. The Duke stands nearby, calm as ever, and tells her these are the people from the Thieves' Guild, the ones who went after Dale. The truth hits her hard, and it's not something she'll forget anytime soon. He realizes that Dale is the one behind everything that's happened. She takes in the scene and sees a body with its inside spilled out, and another one that looks crushed and full of holes. For the first time, she starts to wonder if everything she taught Dale might not have been right. He tells her they really need her help if they want Dale to reach his full potential. They know she's got the experience and smarts to make that happen. That's why he offers her the job of chief advisor. Eyes widen when it hit her she wasn't just being invited to teach. They actually wanted her to join the Saxon family. The whole idea made her freeze for a second. It was way more than she expected, and her mind started racing, trying to figure out what this could mean for her. He lets everyone know that Dale counts on her a lot, and helping him out is just too much for one person to handle. He insists that if she decides to help out, everything else going to change. She nods, letting him know she gets it. Teacher knows her job just got even more important. Now more than ever, she has to figure out how Dale looks at the world. Time went by and soon it was Dale's 10th birthday. The whole thing was set up in a huge fancy banquet hall, way bigger than any regular birthday spot. This year's birthday party stood out because guys from the Emperor's side showed up too. Someone important stood out in the crowd. Marquis arrives and is greeted right away. He walks up to meet young Lord Dale, looking pretty pleased to finally see him. While the party was going on, the guests couldn't stop talking about the food. Everyone was seriously impressed, and people kept mentioning how generous Duke Saxon was to put together such a great spread. The atmosphere felt pretty upbeat, with everyone enjoying themselves and appreciating what the Duke had done for them. They looked around, pretty surprised at how fancy everything was, especially since they were way up north. All that talk before about the duchy being too far from the empire didn't really matter anymore. Dale keeps an eye on what's happening, realizing these nobles are the main players from the imperial capital. They're basically the top supporters of the emperor, the ones with the most power in his circle. He gets it now. There's no mystery about why they showed up at this party. The message is obvious. They're basically letting everyone know to watch their step. Word started spreading fast. A message came straight from the imperial family. They made it clear they weren't going to just sit back and watch after what happened to Count Brandenburg, the guy everyone knew as the Sword of Sanctity. This was big news, and anyone who heard about it could tell things were about to get serious. Right in front of him stood Marquis, the messenger who totally got what all this meant. The Marquis looked Dale up and down, taking in the sight of him. This was the young Lord Dale. Marquis stepped forward and told Dale who he was, calling himself the Crimson Lord. Dale's mind drifts to who the Marquis really is. This guy runs the Red Magic Tower, the place known for its obsession with fire, strength, and using power to keep order. Everyone in that tower is all about proving themselves, and only the strong get respect. That whole power rules attitude is everywhere in the Empire, but these mages really live by it. They jumped right in, doing whatever the Empire needed without a second thought. They followed orders, letting themselves be used to push the Empire's plans forward. He remembers how in his past life the Red Tower mages put him through all kinds of magical changes, none of which he chose. Marquis turned his attention to Dale. He'd already heard the rumors. Everyone was talking about the ducal family's so-called miracle genius. Word around was that this kid's magic skills were on another level, way above anyone else in the Empire. He goes on bringing up stories about Dale. People say that when Dale was just 9, he took down a bunch of orcs to save one of the family's knights. The man finally confirms that Dale really is the Duke's son. Dale just gives a small smile, not showing much but looking kind of relieved. He gives a quick nod and hopes the guy has a good time. He walks off, thinking about how tiring it is to get all those birthday messages like this every year. He'd honestly prefer to be training with Charlotte, but since she's busy helping his mom as a lady-in-waiting, that's not really an option right now. But what really hits him is how risky it would be if anyone caught the sword god's daughter, Charlotte, practicing with a sword. Out of nowhere, a scream cut through the hallway. Right after, there was a rough voice mad at someone, a maid, probably telling her to stay put. He paused, trying to figure out which direction the noise had come from. Dale hears some noises and heads over to check them out. He spots a guy going after a maid who's down on the floor, clearly scared. She's trying to get the man to back off, letting him know she works for House Saxon, hoping that'll make him leave her alone. One of the guests, a heavyset guy, gets worked up when he hears her say the Duke's family name. He can't believe a maid would even mention them, and he makes it pretty clear he thinks she's out of line. He keeps on complaining, pointing out that it's the young lord's birthday, and everyone else is out there having a good time. He thinks hanging around at this party is pointless and figures his time would be better spent with a girl. He glares at Eve, the maid, making it clear that if she keeps pushing back, things could get dangerous for her. The man tried to boss the maid around, clearly thinking he was in charge, but Dale stepped in, not looking happy about it at all. He cut in, calm but serious, making it clear he wasn't going to let the guy get away with it. The man freezes when he spots young Lord Dale. He clearly wasn't expecting to see him here and starts to panic a little, trying to think of a way to get out of the mess he's in. The big guy clearly wanted to get out of trouble. He tried to brush things off and threw out a rude question at the younger guy, asking if he'd ever been with a woman before, almost like he was trying to embarrass him for being young. He steps up and says he'll teach him himself. At the same time, he's got Eve, the maid, in his grip. She's shaking. He presses a knife close to her, making it clear he's serious. Dale doesn't pay any attention to the guy trying to get a reaction out of him. Instead, he turns to Eve and lets her know everything's fine, doing his best to help her relax. He lets her know that he's going to help her out soon. He figures that in a world where everyone sticks to their social ranks, wouldn't ever expect a noble like him to actually go after an imperial guest. He takes advantage of the moment and uses an ice spell, landing a direct hit on. Hits the ground hard. Dale watches him, pretty sure isn't going to give up that easily no matter what. He knows going after the Emperor's guy would just make things worse. Stands up fast, his face tight with frustration. He doesn't get what's going on and wants answers. Dale just stares him down, his voice flat, and tells to get on his knees. He raises his voice at, who stands there frozen, not sure what to do. He tells him again to get down on his knees and say sorry to Miss Eve. He lets everyone know that Miss Eve is actually part of House Saxon. Stepped in, clearly annoyed. He made it obvious he wasn't just some random guy, he was there for the Emperor. Being talked to like that just because someone wanted to stick up for a maid really got under his skin. It was almost like an insult to the Emperor himself and wasn't about to let that slide. Dale interrupts him, tossing out a question that's loaded with sarcasm, wondering if the Emperor just goes around messing with other people's maids for fun. Can't believe what he just heard. He stares at the other guy, totally thrown off, and points right at him, like he's calling him out for crossing a line. Right then, Duke Jackson, Marquis, and the other guests showed up. Marquis watches the scene and just grins, clearly entertained by what's going on. The Duke looked at his son, wanting to know what was going on. Dale let him know that had tried to mess with one of the Saxon maids. One of the nobles looked at Dale, acting like he couldn't believe how Dale was acting towards her, and you could tell he wasn't being serious about it. Didn't waste any time and started complaining to the Duke, making Dale out to be some immature kid who didn't know how to act. Dale cut him off, his tone serious. He wanted to know who said it was okay for the guy to be up. He talks to the guests, letting them know that the nobles from the imperial capital are there because they've got the job of standing in for the Emperor. Wasn't exactly the nicest guy around. He went after a maid who worked in the palace, clearly trying to make the Emperor look bad. It was obvious he wanted people to start doubting the Emperor's character by dragging someone innocent into his scheme. He just couldn't stand the way Sir acted. It was embarrassing to watch, and he didn't want to put up with it anymore. Marquis couldn't help but laugh. He was honestly impressed by how clever the young lord was. Like, the kid just kept surprising him, and it was actually kind of entertaining. He realizes that what the guy said is spot on. He thinks it's messed up that someone working for the king would try to mess with a simple maid. He signals to his attendant, making it clear he wants taken out. To him, is nothing more than a bothersome bug that needs to be dealt with. Freezes, his heart pounding in his chest. Panic takes over as he yells, hoping anyone will hear him and come running. Ulysses steps forward and throws out a blast of fire, aiming straight ahead. The heat from the flames lights up the area and everyone around can feel the intensity. He looks focused, putting everything he's got into the attack. Body tenses up as the fire hits him and he can't help but let out a loud yell. The pain is sharp and real, spreading fast, and for a second all he can think about is how much it hurts. Totally agrees with the young lord, thinking he's spot on. He feels like it's his job to take care of anyone who tries to disrespect the imperial family or the empire, no matter what. In his mind, people who cross that line deserve to be dealt with, and he's more than ready to step up. Marquis wraps things up and looks at Lord Dale, clearly expecting big things from him. Once things calmed down and the Emperor's soldiers headed out, Duke Saxon's castle finally felt normal again. The halls were quiet and everyone could breathe a little easier. The next morning, Eve the maid went to wake up the young Lord Dale. He thanked her, but as he looked at her, he could tell she was holding something back. It seemed like she wanted to say more, and he picked up on that right away. Eve gives a small, awkward nod, clearly not sure what to say. She tries to show she's grateful, and it's obvious she really respects him. Even though she's nervous, you can tell she's proud to be on his side. He pauses for a second, trying to figure out why she stopped before saying anything. Even after all this time in this world, respect like that still catches him off guard. He knows he's got to get used to it, though, whether he likes it or not. He nods at Eve once more, his mind already racing. As the oldest son in the Saxon family, he knows what that title means. It's not just about his name, it's about all the pressure and expectations that come with it. He's determined to throw everything he's got into taking down the empire, no matter what it takes. Later that day, the Duke called Dale into his office. He looked at his son with this proud expression, clearly thinking Dale was an impressive kid. Lately, the way he's been acting just seems off. The other guy can't help but wonder what's up with him. Dale caught him off guard, bringing up something he hadn't really thought about before. He asked if he realized that things would have been completely different if the hero from another world hadn't lost his life in that fight against the sword god Lord. The hero's next move was clear. He was coming straight for the Duchy of Saxon. When the Duke found out, he was completely caught off guard. It wasn't something he ever thought he'd have to deal with, and the news hit him hard. The Duke raised an eyebrow, surprised by how confident the guy sounded. He couldn't help but wonder where that certainty was coming from. Dale paused for a second, remembering something he'd heard before he died. Back then, rumors were going around about the Empire planning something shady against House Saxon. That memory made him second guess what he was about to do. In his head, he switches up what he was about to say, then tells his dad that the Empire got rid of the hero's power because they were scared this hunting dog would end up causing trouble they couldn't handle. Back then, even after the hero took down the Demon King, the Empire never really finished the job. They left parts of the Demon King's land still crawling with darkness. Instead, the Empire handed down a wild command, telling the Saxons to take back those lands and turn them into part of the Empire. They had to use up their own resources for it, and after all that, the land was just given away to the Duke as his own territory. Dale realizes that the darkness covering that land isn't gone yet, so their energy keeps getting drained. No matter what they try, it just won't stop until the darkness is finally dealt with. People from the Empire and folks living outside the northern region often talk about them, giving them the nickname Clan of Darkness. Because of this, the Empire got rid of the hero before, and now it's aiming to wipe out the Saxons, who they see as a problem inside their own walls. The Duke looked at his son, surprised that Dale knew about what happened to the hero. Dale just shrugged and said he figured it out from what he'd read in the archives. The story never really made sense to him, so he put the pieces together on his own. Everyone heard the story. The hero lost his life fighting hard against Lord Battle, the sword god. They said it was an honorable end, the kind people talk about for years. Dale figures his dad must be pretty surprised that he managed to piece things together just from reading. Not many people know the real story, but Dale caught on by digging through books on his own. Dale keeps thinking things over, trying to figure it all out. He starts to realize that if he's right, then the Empire's idea of justice isn't really fair at all. Instead, it's just the kind of justice a bully would use, pushing weaker nations around and taking what they want by force. The Duke watches his son and can't help but notice how much the kid seems to know, like he's got experience way beyond his years. Dale wanted to know what the other guy thought. He wanted to figure out where House Saxon should go from here. Without hesitating, Dale made it clear that House Saxon and the Empire would never be able to get along. The Duke hears that they have to take down the Empire and he just freezes. He can't believe what he's hearing. Everything he thought he knew gets flipped upside down in that moment. He calls out his name, sounding more serious than usual. He looks at him, making sure he really gets the weight of his own words. Dale made sure everyone knew he wasn't telling them to start a rebellion right now. He's talking about what'll happen in 10 years. The Duke just sits there, kind of surprised, thinking about what 10 years really means. Dale kept talking to his dad, making sure he understood that even now, there are still groups all over the continent who want to break free and be independent. Some lords, including Duke Saxon, are nervous that the Empire might come after them next. He points out that the economy keeps getting worse. More bandits show up every day, and even though the continent is finally united, the damage from the war just keeps piling up. He thinks they've got about 10 years before things get serious, so for now, everyone needs to get stronger. He wants them ready to defend their home when the Empire shows up. He thinks the best way to do this is by backing up the resistance groups in different areas. Dale keeps laying out his whole plan on how he wants to take down the Empire. He keeps talking, going over everything while the sky outside slowly turns orange. As the day fades, he finally turns to his dad, wanting to know what he thinks. The Duke let out a laugh, clearly impressed by just how talented his son was. It was obvious he thought his son's skills were on another level, like there was no way to measure how good he really was. He knows Dale can spot things way farther out than he ever could. He feels really proud to have Dale as his son. From now on, he decides he's not going to see Dale just as his oldest kid or some 10-year-old anymore. Even though Dale was still young, everyone started showing him respect, knowing he'd one day be in charge of House Saxon. Hearing this made Dale feel something shift inside him. It was a big moment, and he couldn't help but feel proud. The Duke gives a nod, making it clear he'll actually listen and treat Dale's words seriously this time. Dale gets it. This is the chance he's been hoping for. Right now, he holds the power to steer House Saxon however he wants. The Duke looks to his son, wanting him to just say what's on his mind about the big choice he has to make for their family. Dale grinned and pointed out to his dad that he hadn't forgotten the promise to treat him like an equal leader. After thinking it through, he asked if he could join the Tower trial in Necropolis. The Duke didn't see this coming at all and just sat there, stunned by the request. The narration lays it out. The Tower trial is basically a ranking challenge. Mages go up against the Guardians of the Magic Tower, and how well they do decides where they stand compared to everyone else. Anyone who can beat the top Guardians gets a shot at becoming an Elder in the Tower. But only one person can make it all the way to the very top, and that person earns the title of Tower Master. The Duke looked at his son's request and pointed out how risky the Tower trial really was. He made it clear that people could actually die there, and his son needed to understand just how serious things could get. The teacher points out that Dale isn't ready yet. He hasn't even finished the third circle. But Dale doesn't seem bothered at all. He just stays calm and sure of himself, like he knows he'll get there soon enough. The Duke explains that most people don't reach the third circle until they're in their mid-20s. Even though Dale's already nailed the second circle, getting to the next level is still really tough for him. Dale stands his ground, making it clear that what happens next isn't just about him. It's something that matters to his dad and to House Saxon too. When his father asks what he's talking about, Dale doesn't back down. This choice is personal, but it's also about his family and where they come from, and he wants everyone to know it. He knows that if he does well in the trial, his dad, the Duke, comes out looking even better. Having a son who can handle things like this just makes his family look stronger. He'll finally be known as someone people can count on, not just someone everyone talks about online. The Duke wanted to know if this was why Dale wanted to take the trial. Dale nodded, making it clear that was the reason. The Duke gave a small smile, letting Dale know he trusted him to handle things. Dale felt a wave of relief and got excited, determined to show his dad he could do it. Just a couple days went by. The Duke and Dale stepped into Necropolis, known as the City of the Dead. The huge door slowly swung open. Everyone inside stopped what they were doing as the Black Duke stepped in. People straightened up and paid attention, showing him a level of respect that was hard to miss. Dale let out a long yawn, realizing he might have pushed himself too hard. He could feel just how tired he was, and it started to sink in that he'd probably gone a bit overboard this time. Everyone in Necropolis saw Duke Saxon and Lord Dale show up. People can't help but wonder if the stories about Dale being some kind of magic prodigy are real, since they've never seen anyone like him before. Someone else notices Dale's gloomy face and tries to reassure reassure him, hoping he doesn't second-guess himself. The crowd kept murmuring, some guys throwing shade at Dale. One of them joked around, saying he'd heard Dale's sword skills were supposed to be as good as the Duke's knights, but everyone could tell he didn't mean it. The way he said it made it clear he thought Dale was pretty lame. Who finished first at the academy steps up with total confidence. He believes he's the one who should come out on top in this test, not Dale, the kid from the duchy who honestly looks like he might not last around. Dale showed up at the tower with his dad. As soon as they got there, a woman named Iris stepped forward. She nodded politely toward the Duke, the guy in charge of the tower, showing a lot of respect. The Duke walked up to Iris and she showed her respect to Lord Dale. It turned out that Iris wasn't just anyone. She was actually an elder at the tower and handled everything as the Secretary General whenever the Black Duke was away. The Duke let his son know that Iris was going to help him out with the test. He didn't argue or make a big deal about it, just nodded and went along with the plan. He let her know he was counting on her and she just nodded, totally cool with it. Then she turned and motioned for him to come along, leading the way without missing a beat. Iris walked ahead, guiding Dale into a massive hall. As they made their way in, she let him know that there would be 59 other academy grads taking the test with him. Dale glanced around, taking in the size of the place and the thought of having to compete with so many others. Dale scans the hall, taking in all the other guys getting ready for the competition. Iris steps up and greets everyone, letting them know she's the Secretary General. She started talking about the first floor test at the tower and told everyone to look at the life point pendants hanging around their necks. She lets everyone know the test is basically a battle where they have to steal each other's life points. Every pendant gives some magic protection and holds one life point, so everyone starts on the same level. Whenever a contestant manages to hit someone with one of the corpses lying around, that person's pendant breaks. Right after, a shield pops up around them, signaling that they're out of the match. Whoever managed to land a hit would score an extra point. If someone stacked up 3 points, that meant they could move on to the next level. Artifacts aren't allowed at all, and anyone caught using them, it's kicked out right away. Dale figures these rules are set up to weed out the newbies fast. The other contestants kept their voices low, glancing over at Dale. Most of them looked uneasy, some even a little scared as they talked about him behind his back. To them, Dale wasn't just another competitor. He seemed way more intense, like someone you wouldn't want to mess with. Everyone's surprised that he's already made it to the 3rd circle, especially since he's so young. Thinks it's a smart move if they join forces and go after the monster together. Someone in the group starts to question if it's actually safe to go after the young lord. Shrugs off the concern, acting like everyone's on the same level once the test starts. Dale catches what says and in his head can't help but size them up. He respects their confidence but wonders if they can actually back it up, thinking he'll see for himself soon enough. Iris let everyone know the test was about to begin. The contestants wasted no time and started bringing the dead bodies back to life, turning them into undead soldiers who followed their every command. Sees that Dale is still standing there, not making a move. Without wasting any time, points at him and his undead soldier charges forward. The sword comes down fast, aiming right at Dale. Freezes for a second when he watches Dale's undead soldier step in and stop the attack. It's not what he expected, and for a moment, he just tries to process what's going on. The attacker stops in his tracks when he sees Dale using water magic. The soldier beside him goes completely still, caught off guard by what's happening. He starts to think about whether he might actually have the power to use 2 kinds of magic at once. That thought hits him while he watches his own soldier go up against the undead one he just made. The contestant clenched his fists, his face tightening as he watched his undead soldier crumble to pieces right in front of him. Seeing his own creation break apart like that hit him hard, and frustration started to build up inside. Another undead soldier lunged at one of Dale's guys, but the hit didn't land. A solid ice shield held strong, blocking the attack. Dale didn't look bothered at all. He just pointed out that the shield was doing its job, keeping his teammates safe. Gets fired up, pointing his finger and calling out the other guy for cheating. He's sure the dude broke the rules by pulling out water magic when he wasn't supposed to. You can see frustration all over his face. He's not letting this go. Explained that the rules only allowed dark magic, which meant stuff like raising the undead or making them stronger. Dale coolly just looked at him, not sure if he really believed it. He turns to Iris, the one just watching everything, and wants to know if there's actually some rule that says undead can only get stronger with dark magic. Iris doesn't say anything, just keeps quiet. Dale looked around and realized the test was still going, so he figured he hadn't done anything wrong. Meanwhile, couldn't hide how annoyed he was and just let out a frustrated sigh. Known as the best in his class, suddenly raised his voice at the team. He pushed them to stop Dale's ice-powered undead soldier, making it clear that their main focus should be on Dale himself. He points out that he's just one guy, and if they all come at him together, there's no way he can handle them. Dale remembered that artifacts weren't allowed either. He figures the only way forward is to take himself on. He takes off, heading straight for the undead that's coming at them. He moves smoothly out of the way as they try to land a hit, staying just a step ahead of them. He grabs a sword right out of an undead soldier's grip. Then, using some black magic, he throws a hard punch at it. He takes out another undead, barely breaking a sweat. One of the guys in the contest just stands there, surprised that his undead soldier got taken down so quickly. He can't believe how easily it happened. Meanwhile, is watching Dale, and he's starting to realize that Dale's sword must be something special. Iris watched as Dale messed around with the bones, changing them up to make the sword stronger. Dale keeps swinging, not letting up for a second. Just as he catches his breath, another undead soldier comes at him, forcing him back into action. He jumps up and swings his sword down at the undead soldier. Just stood there, not really knowing what to do. All his soldiers were gone, and it hit him hard. His mind raced as he watched the mage handle a sword like he'd been born with it in his hand. He couldn't help but question if it even made sense for someone with magic to fight this well up close. Fear crept in, making him unsure about what he was up against. Dale steps up to where he's down, looking totally defeated. He's desperate, hoping Dale will go easy on him, but Dale just keeps moving closer without slowing down. Dale just laughs at him, acting like it's no big deal. He points out the pendant, making it clear that nothing bad's really going to happen because of it. He takes a hard swing at, aiming right for his head, goes down, his pendant getting smashed in the process. Lying there, looks up at him, hurt and calling him a monster. Iris gets up and gets everyone's attention. She shares the results, making it clear that Lord Dale is the only one who made it through the test. He ended up with 60 life points. Basically, he got all the points from the other competitors. Dale looks around and tells himself this is where it all starts for him. He plans on making moves here and he wants everyone to notice. The story moves up to the second floor of the tower trial. This time the challenge is a tough one, beat the Guardian, which turns out to be a flesh golem. In his mind, he knows that the usual way things go is that the people who make it past the first floor usually stick together to take down this Guardian. But this time he took everyone out by himself, so now he's the only one left. This floor is different too. Here all kinds of magic are allowed, not like the first floor where there were limits. Even though the rule about no artifacts is still on, he figures what he is will get the job done. He sees this as his shot to build the third circle and find out what he's really capable of. The golem swung at Dale, but he moved out of the way just in time. He jumps in and hits the golem's arm, leaving a noticeable mark. The golem freezes, clearly not expecting to get hurt. He grinned and got ready to use a new spell called Accelerated Decay. Iris watched closely as the young lord worked his magic. She could tell right away that what he was doing wasn't just some basic spell anyone could pull off. This was something different, something more powerful than usual. Iris paid extra attention, trying to figure out just what the young lord was up to. The magic tears through the golem's body, breaking it down piece by piece. Iris can't help but think about Dale's choice. He went with a spell that messed up the golem from the inside instead of just tearing it apart. She's trying to figure out what's going on in his head. Dale thinks about the decay magic he just used on the golem. It reminds him of his old life where fighting monsters wasn't just about guns. Biochemical tricks were just as important. He wipes the blood off his face and starts to think about the people watching, especially Iris. He can't help but wonder if they get it, how all these messed up things happening now, all this black magic is just another kind of chemical warfare. That day, Dale finished the trial and made it all the way to the 10th floor, setting a new record. He got 4 days off before he had to take on the 11th floor. While everyone was still trying to process what happened on the first floor, thanks to Dale going off and causing chaos, the judges made a rare call. They decided to give the other 59 contestants another shot, letting them retake the test so things would be fair again. That night, once everything in the courtroom was over, Dale found himself alone next to a fountain. Teacher noticed him and gave him props for doing so well in the trial. He felt grateful and knew it was all thanks to what she had taught him. He catches her off guard when he suddenly asks if she wants to go out with him. He mentions there's a festival happening in the city, thinks about it for a second, then decides to join him. She figures he's still too young to really get what going on a date means. Meanwhile, he grins to himself, already catching on to what people mean when they talk about having a sneaky side. The guys show up at the Necropolis City Festival just as the place is buzzing with excitement. Lights flash everywhere, fireworks pop in the sky, and crowds move between stalls, enjoying the celebration. It's loud, colorful, and pretty much impossible not to get caught up in the energy. Looked over at Dale, probably expecting him to be wiped out after everything they'd just gone through, but Dale just shook his head, acting like it was nothing. He didn't seem tired at all. He mentions he's got a couple of days before the next trial starts. Things go quiet between them for a moment. Dale glances up at the sky and mentions how nice the moon looks tonight. She nods along, agreeing. Inside, Dale's mind starts racing, struggling to figure out what to say next and wishing it was easier to keep the conversation moving. He figured that being quiet around never felt weird. Maybe it was because she had this way of trusting him no matter what. He wanted to get to know her better. Thinking back to the last few days, he remembered the moment he finally made it to the third circle. That memory stuck with him, especially now. He finally saw what always mentioned, the way the world looked inside his own head. To get to the third circle, he had to push himself harder than ever and let out more mana than what the second circle could handle. This was called mana overflow. While he was busy with what he was doing, everything around him changed. Suddenly, he ended up somewhere unfamiliar, looking around and trying to figure out what was going on. In the distance, a voice echoed in his head, reminding him that the things he's thinking about are showing up all around him. That's when it hit him. He was inside his own mind, in a place where his thoughts and ideas took shape. He started to see just how empty his life had always been. In all that emptiness, Teacher was the one person who actually noticed him and tried to help. Back at the festival, Dale watches for a moment. He starts to realize that this might be the reason he wants the teacher who made things clearer for him. Out of nowhere, he just says he loves her, freezes for a second, not sure if she heard him right. He says it again, not backing down, gives a small, warm smile and pulls him into a hug. She gets where he's coming from and it's clear she cares about him too. He feels grateful to her, realizing that getting a second shot at life definitely comes with some advantages. A few days later, when the 11th floor trial comes around, Dale figures that nothing's really changed between him, and since that whole confession thing. He figured she just thought it was some kid's silly crush, nothing serious, so he pushed it aside and kept his mind on the next challenge ahead. Iris let everyone know what was coming next. This round was going to be a one-on-one magic duel. Only the winner would get to move up to the 12th floor. Dale faces the guy across from him. The dude says his name is and mentions he's a third circle master. Dale sizes him up, trying to figure out what that actually means, but he keeps his cool, not wanting to look nervous. He let Dale know he wasn't planning to hold back, even though Dale was just a kid. Dale thinks to himself about what's going on in this 11th floor trial. Now that everyone could use their full magic and there were no more limits from artifacts, the life point pendant wasn't really enough to keep anyone completely safe. Looked over at Dale knowing the gloves were finally off. He figured that with nothing holding him back anymore, he'd be able to show Dale just how big the difference between them really was ready to go all out and prove his point. He tells him to pay attention and not let his guard down during the fight. The guy lets Dale know right away that he's on a totally different level compared to the rookies Dale used to face at the academy. He makes it clear that Dale's winning streak is about to hit a wall. Dale can sense that this fight isn't going to be anything like what he's dealt with before. He fires off a bunch of dark arrows, sending them all flying straight at Dale. He dares the other guy to try and stop his next move. He keeps messing with Dale, acting like Dale's confidence isn't going to help him at all. Without wasting any time, he goes in for another round of attacks. Dale moves quick, slipping past every attack that comes his way. He stays light on his feet, always one step ahead, making it look easy as he avoids getting hit. Dale watches and can't help but notice something off. Throws out a spell before the duel even gets going, and Dale is pretty sure that's not how things are supposed to work. He starts to wonder if he's actually playing fair. Nobody stepped in to break up the fight. The people watching wanted to see what he could really do. He realized pretty quickly that in this world, everything came down to what you could prove. He grits his teeth at the mages, annoyed but quiet about it. Meanwhile, spots his chance and jumps right in, not wasting a second. Raises his voice, calling on the creatures he made to get up and follow his lead forever. With that, the dark monsters start to move, their eyes locked on him, ready to do whatever he says. Dale stands off to the side, looking at what's happening with zero interest. He can't help but feel secondhand embarrassment just watching all this going on. In his head, he's trying to figure out who even taught his opponent to pull off that over-the-top chant. Still, he had to admit, was definitely better than the newbies. Dale keeps weaving around as more undead come at him, all thanks to his creepy magic. He's quick on his feet, always just out of reach, barely staying ahead of the next swing or grab. The pressure's on, but Dale doesn't slow down. He's focused, scanning for any chance to get through. Gets pretty annoyed and wants to know how long the other guy is going to keep avoiding things. He realized that just trying to escape wouldn't get him anywhere. Doubt crept in as he started to wonder if this was really all he could do. Not wanting to back down, he made a split-second decision and signaled one of his undead soldiers to blow itself up. He stands tall, sure of himself, already convinced he's won. Out of nowhere, looks around and notices Dale isn't there anymore. He tries to remember when Dale left, but nothing comes to mind. Now he can't help but wonder where Dale went. Dale showed up behind, throwing out a sarcastic comment about cheating against a kid. Didn't really get what was going on and looked pretty puzzled. Dale had to give some credit for pulling off a sneaky move, but then he switched things up himself and activated spectral form, using his cloak of shadow to pull off the skill. He lets his opponent know he's not even close to winning yet. At the same time, Dale's shadow creatures start making this low humming noise. They're clearly hungry and looking at like he might be their next meal. He gives them a little grin, letting them move ahead. At the same time, he reminds them to take it easy and not load up too much on food. The shadows closed in on, and he yelled out as the pain hit him. Dale noticed the shadows acting kind of hyped up, probably because they hadn't eaten in a while. Meanwhile, looked desperate, hoping someone would go easy on him. Dale signals for the shadows to retreat. Drops to the ground, completely out cold. Iris steps up and lets everyone know that Dale has won the first round. Dale looks around, wanting to know who's up next for the second round. But the next guy steps back and gives up, clearly not interested in risking anything. He just wants to stay safe. Without much delay, they start counting down for the third round. From then until the last match, Dale moved forward without having to fight because his opponents didn't show up. Only once did he actually have to step into the ring. Dale kept working on his 3 magic circles until he got really good at using them. With each new floor, he started taking down the Guardians pretty easily, moving up one level after another. When he finally made it to the 20th floor, he ran into someone who actually matched his skills for the first time. Turns out the Guardian everyone had been talking about was actually the Headless Knight. The knight standing there was nothing like the ones before. He'd been built by a top elder from the Black Tower, so everyone could tell right away that this guy was on a whole different level. Even the people watching start to wonder if the young lord has finally hit his breaking point. But Dale just grins to himself, almost looking like he's enjoying it. For him, if things always went as expected, it'd be way too dull. Dale squared up against the Headless Knight, ready for the fight to start. Everyone in the crowd stared, completely thrown off by what they were seeing. People glanced at each other, trying to figure out what was going on. Everyone just freezes when they see the Headless Knight kneeling in front of Dale. The whole place goes quiet, with everyone staring and not really sure how to react. Dale looked at him and told him to end it himself. The Headless Knight suddenly turned its sword on itself and collapsed, completely wrecked. Dale watched, kind of amazed that the knight would go that far. Giving up its job as a guardian just to stay loyal like that really caught his attention. He starts to get the sense that maybe he pushed things past the limit and messed up. Dale gets why everyone is staring. The knight who was supposed to follow the Tower Elder just switched sides and chose Dale instead. That kind of thing doesn't happen unless you're on the same level as the top guys in the Black Tower. Dale never planned on showing everyone how strong he really was, but now there's no hiding it. He figures he's shown everything he needed to, so he turns around and starts walking toward the exit. As he moves away, the people watching seem curious, wondering what made him leave just then. He knows that no matter how far he climbs, there's a point he just can't go past. He understands that if he keeps climbing, he'll leave the world of monsters behind and turn into something nobody can really understand. That's when Dale's test comes to an end. When Dale's trial wrapped up, that was it for the Tower trials. Everything came to a close right then. When the Tower Master showed up with his son Dale, everyone in the Black Tower stood up straight and gave a sharp military salute. It wasn't only the big noble families in Saxon showing respect. The whole Black Tower, even the oldest and most important mages, lowered their heads to the Duke and his son. Because Dale kept racking up big wins, the whole northern region started coming together bit by bit. In the Duchy of Saxon up north in the Empire, the knights were out on the field working hard in their training. They pushed themselves swinging swords and running drills, but there was a different kind kind of energy in the air. Some of them kept glancing over at the young Lord Dale who stood nearby. Every time he watched, the knight seemed to go even harder, hoping he'd notice their effort. When he gave a small nod or showed a bit of approval, a few couldn't help but break into proud grins, cheering a little louder than usual. Even though it was just a practice day, everyone wanted to impress the young lord. After making it through the tower trial without any trouble, House Saxon could finally relax. Dale got word from his dad, the Duke, that he had to head out and take charge against a bunch of orcs. Most kids at 10 wouldn't even think about leading anyone, but everyone around him just trusted him to handle it. No one questioned if he was up for the job. Dale, known as the true heir to the Black Duke, slowly started bringing the whole northern region together under his name. Later on, Dale went to see his dad and let him know that they'd taken out 145 orcs. The Duke wanted to know if anyone got hurt during the night. Dale told him that 3 people had some minor injuries, but everyone else was fine. The Duke wanted to know if magic had kept everyone safe, but Dale shook his head. He made it clear it wasn't magic at all. The real reason they were okay was thanks to the swordsmen from House Saxon. The Duke flashed a proud smile, clearly happy with how things were turning out. Sir looked over at him, pointing out that the young lord had already gotten comfortable leading a whole squad of knights like it was second nature. Dale just shrugged, not really trying to take any credit, and kind of let everyone know that he owed it all to Sir's lessons. Dale could tell Sir was proud. The old knight knew Dale had picked up more than just sword skills. He taught him how to think through a fight, plan ahead, and handle himself in battle. Sir saw that Dale had really learned the ropes from him. Dale's progress was obvious to everyone around him. He was moving forward fast, picking up new skills and handling challenges like they were nothing. Looking at how things were going, it seemed pretty clear that it wouldn't be long before Dale was in charge of his own territory, leading his team into a domain war. Dale grinned to himself when he thought about a domain war. He was always up for something new, and the idea of a fresh challenge actually got him excited. For him, every new stage was something to look forward to. Dale and Charlotte faced off in the training area, both focused and ready. Charlotte suddenly rushed forward, going all out as she attacked. Dale braced himself, knowing she wasn't holding back. The two of them went back and forth, trading fast punches and kicks. The fight between them kept going, both not backing down. Every move was faster and harder, like neither of them wanted to lose an inch. Even with sweat running down their faces, they pushed through, focused on beating each other. Training wrapped up, and Dale could tell Charlotte was getting a bit better than before. Charlotte looked pretty annoyed, thinking he acted like the whole thing had nothing to do with him. He started to wonder if maybe he'd pushed her buttons a little too much. She points out that he's already made it to 3rd Circle Mage and cleared the 20th floor of the tower trial, like it's something he shouldn't forget. Ever since then, all anyone seemed to do was talk about how great young Lord Dale was. She brought it up, wondering if he ever got tired of hearing about himself all the time. He just tried to put her at ease, letting her know it wasn't a big deal. He tries to reassure her, thinking that she'll get stronger with time. In his mind, he's pretty impressed. Charlotte's only 10, but her skills already stand out. Charlotte's face turned red as she got worked up, clearly annoyed that she was being treated like a little kid. The guy didn't back down, just shot back that she actually was a kid. Charlotte wasn't having it and fired right back, pointing out that he was one too. The tension hung in the air, both of them stubborn and not ready to let it go. He grins, letting her know he's already grown up. In his mind, he's thinking about all the stuff he remembers from his previous life, like he's got memories way beyond his years. Later on, Sir starts teaching Dale something new. He lets him know that today's lesson is all about the hammer and anvil move. He goes on to talk about the plan, pointing out how the cavalry is supposed to smash through the side of the enemy and circle around them. Meanwhile, the foot soldiers hold off any enemy horsemen trying to fight back. He makes it clear this part of the strategy matters most. The tactic gets its name from how blacksmiths hit metal on an anvil with a hammer. Dale realizes that this strategy works only because the black cavalry is around. He figures that no matter where you are, war pretty much stays the same. Wanted to know how things were going with Charlotte's training. Dale thinks her training is really good, but he knows his own training is on another level. He lets her know she's finally got the basics of sword fighting down. Pretty soon, she'll be moving on to learning how to use aura and picking up the sword style that the Saxon family is known for. But there's something on his mind. Before he can finish, Dale cuts in, thinking the problem must be whether Charlotte can keep up with how they fight with swords. The narration talks about how mages usually turn mana into magic using their circles, but it turns out knights can do something similar. With enough focus and training, knights can also take mana and keep it inside themselves as aura. It's all about practicing and having good control. Just like how mages build towers to teach their magic, knights set up their own groups to pass down their sword skills to the next generation. In the middle of all this, there's the group known as the Black Cavalry. He was part of the Knight Raven Order, a group from the northern Saxon family. Their way of fighting was all about using pure strength, hitting hard and never holding back. Charlotte's whole game is about being fast and light on her feet, but with the skills she's got right now, she'd be lucky just to scrape into the 7 swords. She could train for years, but she just wasn't going to become the top swordsman. Her dad used to have that job. People called him the Sword of. Sir went on, letting everyone know he really wished the Sword of style hadn't vanished after the Night Kingdom fell. It was clear he missed it, and the way he talked about it made it sound like something truly rare was lost. Dale starts to think about whether this fighting style is actually gone for good. Lately, he's been getting noticed more as he keeps pushing himself through tough training and taking down monsters. It was finally time to see if all that training paid off. The Duke was hanging around when a messenger showed up out of nowhere. As soon as he heard the news, he just froze, like he couldn't believe what he was being told. The messenger shows up and lets everyone know that Baron, who lives next door, says the Duke's copper mine actually belongs to him. On top of that, has officially challenged the Duke to a domain war. Dale knows the rules in this world aren't always black and white, but still, he figures it's just asking for trouble when someone like a Baron goes up against a Duke. It's risky and most people would probably back off before things get out of hand. The messenger lets the Duke know that if he won't give up the mine and decides to go to war, things are going to get a lot more serious. Archduke Brandenburg decided to back up the Baron's claim, but he wasn't doing it for free. He wanted a cut of the profits from the copper mine in return for his support. But that's not all. Brandenburg also plans to send his Magdalena order to back up the Baron. Dale catches on right away. He knows exactly what's going on. Brandenburg still remembers how Dale's dad embarrassed him before, and now he's coming back to settle the score. This is payback, plain and simple.